In the case of Trump, I was reading just some of his executive orders and saw how stupid they looked. So I'm going to basically discuss them. Every time I read uh, executive order that kills me, I'm going to drink a non-alcoholic drink. Um, this is not sake with a lemon lime soda and grenadine. So that'll be my drink through the night. And every time I hate an executive order, I'm going to drink it. And then when there's a executive order that I can't stand, like I think it's the worst thing ever, and this is the downfall of our country, I'm gonna take a shot. So stay tuned and enjoy, guys. Thank you so much for being part of this. Yeah, shouts to the world. I think you can hear me. My audio says it's picking up pretty well. So please in the chat tell me if I sound like shit. But we'll go from here. We're gonna start with the NPR article that states the list of his executive orders. I don't know if he has 200 executive orders, truthfully. I saw one headline, and that's why I felt the need to make this stream. So yeah, while I'm scrolling down to this guy, let's I guess start with the first drink. So I'm gonna make a dirty Shirley. I don't drink, by the way. Like I rarely do I drink alcohol. So this will be fun. But for my ASMR girlies, I'm gonna open up this not sake bottle. And then we're gonna pour the sake. I think that's good. Okay. And then we're gonna do this thing. And then we're gonna pour it in here. I don't think you see it. Okay. And then we're gonna do the grenadine. So we're gonna pour the grenadine. I've never made a dirty Shirley in my life. I think that's the proportions. Okay, and now it looks like that. And this will be the drink throughout the night. And then this will be the drink. The little shooters I have will be the shots when I see something really terrible. Oh, and then I got cherries. What a crazy world we live in, guys. So I'm going to open this. And then, yeah, once I'm done making this drink, we'll jump into the actual article. So, you know, shouts to the world. Let's just say that. Okay, so 4 cherries. A little bit of that juicy juice stuff. Okay. Alrighty. Well, we have our drinks. We have our little shooter shots. Let's get into it. So, yeah, we are going to start with the first executive order, I guess. So, unleashing American energy. This order encourages energy exploration and production of federal lands and waters, including offshore, promoting critical minerals as well as fossil fuels. It lays out a policy to promote true consumer choice by removing regulations that favor electric vehicles as well as safeguarding the freedom to choose among household appliances, where President Trump has long criticized efficiency requirements, immediately reverses a number of Biden-era environmental orders and call for a freeze on disbursement of some congressionally allocated funds, while the administration reviews whether they're compatible with the new policy direction. Cancels contradictory past executive orders. Agencies must act within 30 days. Okay, so this sounds like they're just taking back I guess the trajectory of putting forward electric vehicles. We're now promoting fossil fuels, which I fucking feel like I have to already drink. I don't like this because I feel like we should be using hand-in-hand methodology of we will definitely rely on fossil fuels for the rest of my life and probably your children's lives. But the idea to ignore that fossil fuels is a finite resource, why not promote other things? But I don't also, the reason I'm gonna drink. So first drink, guys. if you're watching at home, you just gotta take a sip. That's not bad. That is really, I get it now. I get why alcoholics do this. I don't want to flat out say screw this order because I feel like I understand it very little. Like what of this executive order is actually him doing something tangible, or is it just more theatrics? Because a lot of these executive orders, like the gender one that we'll see later down the line, is more theater. It's like it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't have any science backing. It doesn't have any logical backing. It's straight up. And I say logical, obviously I'm biased, but there's this like idea that like we're thinking this thoroughly and trying to be unbiased, but there's a bias here, and I feel like he just hates electric vehicles. And I don't know. I took a sip of my alcohol because I don't like this, but I also want to be as unbiased as possible and say like I don't like this, but I also don't think it says a lot. And maybe we'll click on it a little bit more. I'm hoping there's actually some deeper talk about this in the executive order itself. So, by authority vested in me as president, yada yada. Section 1: America is blessed with abundance of energy, natural resources that have historically powered our nation's economic prosperity. In recent years, burdensome and ideological motivated regulations have impeded the development of these resources, limited generation of reliable and affordable electricity, reduced job creation, and inflicted high energy costs upon our citizens. These high energy costs devastate American consumers by driving up the cost of transportation, heating, utilities, farming, and manufacturing, while weakening our national security. Okay, so the actual policy itself to encourage energy exploration on federal lands and what? Oh, so is he just trying to do like Dakota Pipeline? Is that what the point is here? Because the federal lands, no, because that Dakota Pipeline wasn't on was on reservation land, right? I don't know. Fuck, this is a good one. To establish our position as the leading producer of non-fuel minerals, including rare earth and minerals, which will create jobs and prosperity at home, strengthen supply chains. This is my gripe with a lot of the political systems that we're currently in. When we look at the job discussion, when talking about power and all of that, we should also look into like jobs that can come with solar and nuclear and wind. And I think fossil fuels, as they are, control the world. I think they're 80% of what powers the entire world. So I think this weird like anti-EV mindset is just annoying. To eliminate the EV mandate, I guess there was an EV mandate. Okay, I do recall that with Biden. I think he proposed an executive order that had an EV mandate by 2030. I wish it would say like we're revoking Biden's X, Y, and Z thing, but I guess these executive orders have to be very plain and this is what we're doing, this is what we're gonna do, not this is what's happening. Here's the content. I don't think they write like that. Choose a variety of goods to ensure the global efforts to guarantee. Okay, so no. Okay, so I think the big nail in the coffin with this one is that there's no federal funding for these EV companies that are probably pushing. I imagine like a Tesla or a Rivian. Those companies are probably going to lose some funding. But even then, I don't understand that because he loves Elon. That's his boy right now. Okay, I don't want to harp too long on this. I took my sip. I don't like the idea that we should sway away from electric. I also think we have this not good understanding of other systems or other power sources, and we're pretty novice with it, but I think the research of it is what we should be funding. So okay, well, that was a fun one. Declaring a national energy emergency. The order says that the inadequate energy production poses an unusual extraordinary threat to the U.S. It directs agencies to identify emergency authorities, expansion of the executive branch's power available in times of crisis that could facilitate energy projects like leasing land for oil, gas production, building pipelines. Notably, solar and wind power are excluded from the definition of energy. See, that's the shit I don't like. I'm like, why do you keep swaying away from solar and wind? Again, I'm not a big hippie and say we got it, we need solar, but I think the hubris of the American mindset is that we are going to have oil forever. And it's like, you should start investing. We should start looking into having different resources, if not for our future, but for our children's future. But this, honestly, I'm not going to take a sip on this. I think the little asterisk here of like, notably solar, whatever. I do think that leasing land for oil and gas production for building I'm not against building pipelines per se. I think like when we did the Dakota Access Pipeline, the cost and reward of that was like totally not there. Like the cost of it was way too high for a little reward that I think mostly Canada was going to take. So when that pipeline was shut down, it never even started. The like dangers that it was going to put the Dakota people was just not worth it. And that was like a fair critique, I think, of the pipeline. But as a whole, pipelines, I think, should exist if we want to continue and power our world. That is very like anti-lefty, I think many take it as, and I feel like myself as a lefty, I'm just being realistic. Like, we need to have pipelines. So I'm not I'm not going to sip to this. I want to come in here and say I'm giving Trump some credit. I don't want to be the guy who just bashes him all day. I think this is very, it seems fair. I guess I'm curious to see what this will mean. Like if he declares emergency, he can just build a pipeline wherever he wants. That's the thing I'm fearful of. And we have the ability to click on the actual declaration. So let's see. Um, the energy critical energy identification leads to development, production, transportation, refining, caused by harmful and short-sighted policies of the previous administrations. To active threat to American people from high energy prices is exacerbated by our nation's diminished capacity to insulate itself from hostile foreign actors. Energy security is increasingly crucial theater of global competition. So this is interesting. I love that we're talking about this. I think Trump is a dumbass, and I think him writing this is just he think oil good, everything else bad. That's a stupid way to look at it. We obviously have a reliance on oil. Oil is not going to have this abundance forever, and how much do we export, how much do we import is a fair question, a fair thing to bring up. And I think as president, he's making great points. And I say loosely because I think, again, he just looks at it oil good. And that's just a child's way of looking at it. So when we talk about oil, when we talk about the energy dependency, I like the idea that we as a country work alongside our Canadian importers, exporters. We work alongside the European Union and working with them. I guess there's no EU really anymore, but there's that idea that we can work and in tandem. And yeah, there's instances of like the Russian-Ukraine war where we lost our power. We lost a lot of our buying power because of the Russia cutting ties and Europe going in frenzy, and so we saw a big price hike. But also during the time of post COVID, we were trying to reel back in from the low prices we had versus the back to normal prices that we started seeing with the inflation. So there's talks of energy that we should be talking about. In this case, again, I don't see anything inherently wrong with one pipeline, but I'm not fully understanding what this will bring. The policies of previous administration has driven nationally increasingly unreliable grid without immediate remedy. So you can just have the power to make a pipeline really quick. Is that what he's saying? These numerous problems are proposed. So the heads of executive department agencies shall identify, exercise any lawful emergency authority to available to them. So if it's a federal land, they can generate domestic energy resources. If agency assists the use of federal eminent domain are necessary to achieve the objective. Okay. This is one I'm sort of just, I'm pretty middle. I hate to sound like a little bitch, but I'm pretty middle on this one. Because I think we should have some access of emergency regulation that comes with, like, if there is a need for energy, we need to, help people. But then I'm reading stuff like this where it says emergency regulations and nationwide permits under the Clean Water Act within 30 days of date, the heads of all. So they can dismiss. The secretary shall provide such report in regards to activities be requested by the economic policy. The emergency regulations and nationwide permits under the Clean Water Act and other statutes administered by the Army Corps within 30 days of the date of order of the agencies. Identify plan and potential. So I'm confused on what section 4. So identify plan or potential actions to facilitate the nation's energy supply subject to emergency treatment pursuant. Oh, okay. So you can just see. So this is where I'm like, I'm not necessarily like, I don't like the idea that like we're just gonna have like unvetted pipeline access, but if in a case of emergency, yeah, you do what you got to do. So I don't necessarily think this is a shit act. I do think I'm fearful that it could be used for. I'm only one drink in. I'm debating drinking for this one though. This is the second one, the second policy we're reading, and I'm debating it because I'm worried that stuff like this, where like you can avoid the Endangered Species Act, because in a time of power emergency, we should be able to just give people power and with the pipelines. But fuck it, I'm gonna drink. I think, knowing the Trump administration, I think I have no like real basis other than my biases against them, but I think they could use this as a way to just say, fuck it, we're gonna make Dakota Pipeline 2 the return of Electric Boogaloo. Drink number 2. This isn't bad. This is really good. This is, by the way, for people watching, I'm doing sake, or not sake, because Twitch is gonna get mad. This is not sake with the lemon lime Olipop, they called Poppy sodas, probiotic soda, because I'm trying to stay a little bit healthy. So I made a Dirty Shirley, not alcoholic. And if there's a policy I hate, which I think we're coming close to. I got shooters here, baby. You know what I'm saying? I got my shooters. I drank to the second policy we've looked at so far. So right now we're 2 for 2. I know it's amazing. It's really good, Cyber Baked. Shouts to Cyber Baked. It's my boy. Um, so far I'm 2 for 2 on my drinks, but I've just been sipping my tame drink, and then of course when stuff gets crazy, I got my crazy drink. So let's keep it pushing, boys. While I'm here, I'm gonna post telling people I'm live now, just so people don't think live now. Whoop-de-whoop-de-doo. Thank you guys for joining, by the way. I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna be getting cuckoo bananas for all. I want to get drunk in front of you people, so you all feel like you got your money's worth. So I made my post. Alrighty, let's do it. Putting America first in international environmental agreements. Oh my God! Woo! Woo! So I know this one. I know this one. Ready, guys? We're all. If you have your shooter, if you're watching at home, if you have your shooter, time to get ready for this one. So I'm gonna read it first, and then, and then we're gonna do our shots. I guess. I'm already feeling it, Mr. Krabs. Isn't that weird? I don't drink, by the way. I'm a lightweight. I never drink. All right. Well, Mr. Krabs, I'm already opening mine. Do 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 do. Wait, let me see if I can even open it. Do 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 do. So. The declaration of a national energy emergency. This order says the inadequate energy production poses an unusual and extraordinary threat to the U.S. It directs agencies to identify emergency authorities, expanses of the executive branch's powers available in times of crisis that could facilitate energy projects like leasing land for oil and gas production, of building pipelines, notably solar and power. Oh wait, I'm so sorry. I'm reading the show you I'm drunk. Putting America first in international environment agreements. In order as he did in his first administration, Trump is withdrawing in the U.S. from the Paris Climate Accord and the Biden administration's U.S. International Climate Finance Plan. Woo! Let's drink, boys. Let's get it done. Oh, God. What the fuck is this? I got this at a gas station. Oh, my God. Oh, it's espresso. I should read it next time. Oh, that's awful. Cheers, Cyberbait. Cheers. So you're probably wondering why I drank so soon to this one. The Paris Climate Accord is a on paper agreement where we all just try to work together to get a certain point. They're awful. This thing was. I didn't finish it. I gotta finish it too. By the end of reading this, I will finish. Oh my God, that was terrible. I need my dirty Shirley to wash it down. Woo! So the Paris Climate Accord is by no means something where I think this is like the greatest thing ever. We got to stay part of it. But there's a few things here that piss me off with the Trump administration that has always rubbed me the wrong way. There's a few factors here. But first, the Paris Climate Accord is an agreement that we have with the European nation. I think most, if not all, countries that are huge, I guess, like from Canada to the U.S. to Paris, of course, or France, of course. We are in a position where we're basically saying as a world, we recognize that the human intervention, the human unvetted reliance on fossil fuels and our energy consumption is causing climate change to worsen. And this is not because some random guy on Twitter said this. This is a group of scientists from all around the world with different biases have come to certain conclusions that we are affecting the climate in a bad trajectory. So, if you disagree with that, fine. But you have to be pretty knowledgeable of the climate science. And we can discuss that. But my biggest gripe with this is not the act itself. Because we did it before and you didn't really see much. If I'm not correct, please correct me. And we'll look it up right now. But when we pulled out of the Paris Climate Accord first time, we did it alongside pulling from the Iran deal. And the Iran deal and the Paris Climate Accord were two things that seemed to be at the very least net neutral. They weren't hindering us. They weren't stopping us from doing stuff. We were already trying to wean off of fossil fuels way before even Reagan existed. We realized that fossil fuels are a finite resource. And so given the creation of the EPA, people like Nixon said, hey, human intervention is dangerous and we should have some vetted policies. And we don't have we don't have gas forever. What do we do? And we should also take care of this planet because we can't live on an uninhabitable planet, obviously. So even though the climate Paris Accord, I think honestly does not do much. Like there's no like fine, there's no like we're gonna get sanctions if you fail to meet your part of the Paris Climate Accord. Nothing really happens. You saw it in the case of China. China was continuously worsening their climate, and they weren't really being punished because this is more of like a pinky promise. Like we were all just kind of telling each other, hey guys, let's work together. The thing that pisses me off the most, the thing that I have my biggest gripes for, is that we as a country are pulling out of these deals every fucking 4 years. We can never make an agreement with these countries, especially if they're a net negative, by all means. But the way Trump has written this is that it's sort of hindrance. It's keeping us from doing our thing. When in reality, we weren't really, we were already on the trajectory of switching to the less dependency on fossil fuels. Obviously, you can't switch overnight, and obviously, we're not even there in terms of proper power when we look at solar, wind, but we have things like nuclear that we've started to realize that are a lot more worth it. Definitely more worth it than not having. You know, if we went the nuclear route and say worst case scenario nuclear really destroys the earth, the damage that is already being done is also in a shitty position. So we're in this like sort of nuanced discussion, but when you come to someone like a Trump who just thinks oil good and everything else bad, he's makes us look like shit. When we pulled out of the Iran deal, it looked really bad to our enemies and to our allies that like any sort of agreement could just be pulled away if the next guy comes in. That's always been the nature of the United States, but it seemed like most presidents sort of kind of agreed on a lot of ideas and they kept these promises, but it was never this drastic where like the next 4 years every president is just going to change, revoke every single deal that the last guy did. It's basically what we're in right now. Every president have so far since the Bush administration has been a lot of like push and pull. This like I'm gonna make this bill, I'm gonna do this executive order, or actually I'm gonna revoke it. It looks really shitty to our allies, especially in the case of this is a net neutral policy. Like this is not hindering us. We'll look at it a little bit deeply, but that's what pisses me off the most. So you know what? I gotta finish this drink to show you guys my anger. I'm already feeling it, so I don't think I'm gonna make it, guys. But you know that's why we're here. Oh yeah. Oh, that's awesome. All right, guys. You better be drinking at home with me, you sickos. Do you enjoy this? This is awful. Okay. So yeah, let's click on the actual executive order so we can read it verbatim. I'm drunk. That's amazing. So basically, we revoked the Paris Climate Accord once. It looks like we're just doing the same thing again. Okay, I want to read the first paragraph. So I'm curious, like, what his biggest gripe is with the Paris Climate Accord. Because legit, I want to see if this guy can sway me. If I'm incorrect on my assumptions, if I'm incorrect of my previous knowledge. And let's see. So the United States must grow its economy and maintain jobs for its citizens while playing a leadership role in global efforts to protect the environment over a decade, with the help of sensible policies that do not encumber private sector activities. See, this is a thing where it's like, I understand as a capitalist, you have to be in favor of the private sector. You have to understand that, like, it's key importance. But as a man like Donald Trump, it seems like he only thinks of the private sector when there should be some sort of push and pull. There should be like maybe a 50-50. We shouldn't just have a private sector for everything. I don't want private roads. But that's his mindset. So when I read this, I look at it and go, well, was the private sector really that affected, or were they just doing shitty shit? Raise wages, increase energy, reduced air and water pollution. So I do give him this in this executive order. He's showing the benefit of, hey, we're doing good on our promise. I think the U.S. has been trying to make efforts. I don't know how we do on the global scale, but I think if we just looked at our data, the U.S. has been doing pretty decently on reducing its pollution. For a good example is the greenhouse. There's the ozone layer was being destroyed by the entire world. We reduced our air pollution, the US and even China. We all came together, banded, and we fixed the ozone layer. So that was a real issue that we did. So I give Trump the praise that he's actually showing that, like, oh, we are doing this. We are making steps and strides of making a less polluted world, and we are being smart about this. We shouldn't come here and say, like, close our eyes and cover our ears and say, like, the efforts we're doing is futile and who cares, the world's gonna end anyway. Like, we should always be coming with the mindset that we can do better, and we can have a reliance on different energies. We shouldn't just be this net negative to the earth. But again, pulling out of the climate agreement is just a sort of like theatrics. It's showing that, like, fuck you. I think it builds up to his base. All of this is something he's done before, and again, the Paris Climate Accord is a very net neutral. We've never really did much with it. We were already on the trajectory, and places like China are abusing the pollution, and they're not getting punished. So I understand why people have critiques of the Paris Climate Accord, but you could literally pull in and stay in, and nothing will happen. Pull out, nothing will happen. It's more of a symbolic gesture. And it's a gesture to our allies that we're ready to pull out of every deal every 4 years. Like, why get in a deal with us? Why make any sort of agreement if we're just going to continuously pull out? That's my biggest anger with this. Obviously, the implications of destroying the world is scary, but again, what I've understood is that the Paris Climate Accord has been very neutral in actually changing the world. Maybe for the European countries, I read somewhere that Paris, because of the Paris Climate Accord, was pressured to lessen their air pollution. I don't know how much of the Paris Climate Accord actually affected that, but again, it's the principle of it, like how much we really can't be trusted to have any agreement, because the next guy 4 years from now is just going to pull out. That's what pisses me off. Like, we should have some decorum and some consistency as a country. And I think with Trump, he's kind of known for more pulling out than putting in, if you know what I'm saying. I'll drink to that. God, this is delicious. Alrighty, so unleashing the Alaska's extraordinary resource potential. Oh, by the way, everybody, anybody who's watching, who just tuned in, I'm drinking a Dirty Shirley, not alcoholic, for the Twitch stream. If you have sake laying around, throw it in with a Sprite of sorts, a lemon lime soda of sorts, and you got yourself a Dirty Shirley. Obviously, you need your grenadine. You know what I'm saying? And then, of course, if you see a policy that you really hate, like I do, like, these are just policies I don't like, and then if there's a policy you really hate, we're all gonna take a shot. So yeah, let's for 3 hours, your ass is mine. Let's do it. Unleashing Alaska's extraordinary resource potential, in line with Trump's pledge to drill, baby, drill. This is a president. This is a president of the United States. Oh God, this order establishes that the U.S. policy for country to fully avail itself of the Alaska vast lands and resources, and specifically prioritize developing the state's natural gas reserves for potential of export as liquefied natural gas. It aims to roll back restrictions on drilling, mining, and road building that were implemented during the Biden administration. By authority vested in me, the President, and the Constitution, the state of Alaska holds an abundant, largely untapped supply of natural resources, including, among others, energy, mineral, timber, and seafood. Unlocking this bounty of natural wealth will raise the prosperity of our citizens while helping to enhance our nation's economic and national security for generations to come. By developing these resources to the fullest extent, we can help deliver price relief for Americans, create high-quality jobs for our citizens, ameliorate our trade imbalances, augment the nation's exercise of global energy dominance, and guard against foreign powers weaponizing energy supplies in theaters of the geopolitical conflict. So honestly, so far, again, I want to give Trump as much credit as possible. I don't want to be just a Trump hater. I think if there is an untapped resource, because I don't know much about this is why I'm doing this stream. If there's an untapped resource in Alaska that will help decrease prices of gas, by all means, great. If there's resources that will help decrease prices for the American consumer, great. But if it means destroying federal lands or just Alaska in general and putting the people at danger, then I'm worried. I don't know much about this whole push and pull that Biden and Trump have on this Alaska executive order. So I'm curious how much of this is a big thing. And honestly, I don't feel the need to sip on this, because I'm looking at this like very neutrally. I'm like, this doesn't seem like a bad thing. Obviously, I would rather have a world where we don't have so much of a reliance of the fossil fuels, and we do have a healthy dependency on a plethora of energy resources, because if one is finite, like gas, and it's gone, then we're dead. So we should have a backup, or at the very least research into other sources, just in case, right? This, so far, it looks like they're just going to deregulate some sort of vetting process, expedite the, okay, so yeah, like fully avail itself to vast Alaska resources, American citizens, okay. Efficiently and effectively maximize development of production on natural resources located on both federal and state lands within Alaska. Expedite the permitting. So expediting permitting and leasing of energy resources, I guess, fine. I still want a vetted process. I don't see a world where we should not have a vetted process. rescind, revoke, revise, amend, defer, grant extensions for all regulations, order, guiding documents, policies, and others similar agencies. Prioritize development of Alaska's LNG potential. In addition to actions outlined in subsection, Secretary of Defense rescind the cancellation and place a temporary moratorium on the coastal plain able to gas the program record of decision, which refers to notice availability. Truthfully, I don't really have a lot of issues with this. I don't like it, so I'm gonna drink, but I honestly wouldn't use this as like this is the worst thing Trump did. It just seems par of course. Sips, baby, sip. I think the biggest sin that he did here was drill, baby, drill. Like that shit is annoying. Like you're like 80 years old, dude. Why? What are you saying? You're a president. This is very much. It's not ideal. If there was a scale, I think I would put it on the lower end of like my happiness, but I don't know. I'm looking at this like I feel like he's done worse, and I think this is probably more impactful to people if you live in Alaska. You're probably either worried or excited, but I can't really put a pin on it. I still sipped. I took my sip. I don't think this is as egregious as his other ones. Okay, ending the weaponization of the federal government. The order seeks to hold the previous administration accountable for the alleged weaponization of the federal government. President Trump directs agencies head to review previous criminal enforcement, civil enforcement, and intellectual intelligence conduct the appear politically motivated and provide recommendations for holding actors accountable. What the fuck does this mean? What does this mean? I think he's referring to, and we'll click on it. I think I'm drinking already. I'm drinking, guys. This is so good. This is so good. Why are we not all alcoholics? God, I love it. Is he referring to the DOJ being weaponized against him and his 63 felonies that he obtained, excluding the other accusations and the other indictments? I think he's trying to refer to that, but let's be real here. The DOJ that was attacking him was completely unrelated and uncontrolled by Biden. At no point did Biden step in and say he needs to be prosecuted. If anything, Biden was kind of a church mouse on this topic. So when I see this, I'm like, what are you doing exactly? Are you taking away powers just so next time you don't get in trouble? That's how I read this, knowing his history. But again, let's come at this unbiased. Again, a lot of these are theatrics. Like a lot of these are like, we're gonna do this thing. Like again, we'll get to the forced gender pronouns thing that he wrote. Those are very theatrical. Like no one's going to change their life, but it is very much like taking a stance on a topic that nobody really gives a shit, but it will play up to his base. This is what I feel it's gonna be one of those like nothing is actually gonna change in this policy. But hey, this is why we have the drinks, baby. Let's drink it up. God, I gotta stop drinking. Okay, so the purpose of the American people have witnessed the previous administration engage in systematic campaign against his perceived political opponents, weaponizing the illegal force of numerous federal law enforcement agencies, intelligence communities. That's not true. They didn't. He needs to pull up the facts. You had many judges who were even picked by him that did the indictments. You had people like in New York who went after him, but then a jury found him guilty. So you can all day say that it was Biden, but when you had a jury of random selected pures, they looked at him and found him guilty. So all of this talk of political opponents and blah 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 blah, it's on deaf ears. It should be, because the jury found him guilty. And if other prosecutions were able to go through, if you don't know this, but the rest of the indictments that occurred are basically just washed. They're not good. Since he became president, no Department of Justice head will even touch this. Nobody in the right mind, any sort of judge who wants to not lose their head, is going to continue with those. So many of those have either been dropped or they prosecuted him. He did get indicted he was fully indicted, but there was no prosecution that was set. There was no, you're going to jail for 30 days. They just said, oh, he did the crime, but not Willie. So it's, and I don't blame them. Honestly, if you're a judge and you're scared of the president, I don't blame you. That's the fucking president. So in the case of this, he's painting this fake fictional world that the Biden administration was after him, when in reality, many of the left wing and liberal politicians were mad at the Biden administration for not doing this, not pursuing it, not pressuring the DOJ. The DOJ did it on their own accord. The DOJ brought it up when they had all the evidence, and the DOJ did his prosecution at the very tail end of Biden's administration, just so he wouldn't get this sort of like Biden did this. But even then, people are still going to continuously say Biden did some nefarious thing. If that really did happen and the DOJ was really this bad, his son wouldn't have been indicted and there wouldn't have been that spark of the pardon because he pardoned his son. There is a unbiased DOJ that attacked a guy who possibly did a crime and then it was found he did do the crime. That's not political assassinations of sorts. And I will give it to Trump. When he was in office, he talked about he was going to indict Hillary using his power. But he didn't. He didn't do it. He didn't do it, Benjamin. So I'll give him his credit. He could have easily used the DOJ. Maybe he was less nefarious back then, but he didn't pursue any sort of court case against Hillary. So that's how things should be. A president shouldn't be using their political power. So in principle, I agree with him. I think he has every right to say we shouldn't use our political power to pursue justice of illegitimate government or any sort of government. But he's again, this just seems like theatrics, but we need to finish reading it. So I'm sorry. I'm just blabbering. These actions appear oriented more towards inflicting political pain, towards pursuing actual justice or legitimate governmental objectives. Many of these activities appear to be inconsistent with the Constitution and other laws of the United States, including those activities directed at the parents protesting at school board meetings, Americans who spoke out against the previous administration actions, and other Americans who were simply exercising constitutionally protected rights. Huh? People were attacked at like school board meetings, or did they just do something stupid at a school board meeting? I'm so confused. The prior administration allies throughout the country engaged in an unprecedented third world organization and prosecutorial power to append democratic process. The target individuals who voiced opposition to prior administration policy with numerous federal investigations, politically motivated funding, revocations, which cost Americans access to needed services. The Department of Justice even jailed an individual for protesting a political meme. And while the Department of Justice really prosecuted more than 1,500 individuals associated with January 6th, yeah, because they did a fucking crime. And simultaneously dropped nearly all cases against BLM prior. So, God damn it, I didn't want to spend too much on one of these. Like, I want to like kind of hit these, but son of a bitch, he makes me talk about these things. So the January 6th people, obviously, if they did a crime, they should be prosecuted. And of course there's political motivation to prosecute them because they attacked a political building. Duh. BLM, from my understanding, 99% of them were just destroying a Target or like a mom and pop shop, which is awful. That's terrible. But that's not a insurrection. That is just rioters. It's no different from when a Canadian team wins the NLH Cup, the Stanley Cup, and then they destroy a city and Canada prosecutes. And same with us. We've prosecuted people for a football game riot. The idea, though, is BLM is politically motivated, but it wasn't stopping or hindering any sort of political action. Should they still be prosecuted? By all means. Did Biden pardon BLM rioters? I genuinely don't know. Let's look it up. Did Biden prosecute BLM? Fact check. Joe Biden has condemned violent protests from the left and right. Okay, but did he... is pardoning... Claims that Biden is pardoning 2006-17 BLM protesters stem from a satire article. God damn it, Trump, you son of a bitch. Why do you make me waste time on... This is the shit I hate about current day politics. I'm not even going to read that. That's stupid. He actually did pardoning of January 6th people, and Biden did not. And I know that... I'm like, I would feel like I would have heard that nonstop. I feel like people already made a fuss about the Hunter Biden pardon. I'm like, why didn't I hear about this? Because it didn't fucking happen, and he's making us talk about it. Meanwhile, he did the thing that he's bitching about. God damn it, now I gotta drink. For those who just came in, this is a Dirty Shirley. Woo! I'm gonna be honest, guys. I'm drunk already. So this is fun. It's a policy identified to take appropriate action to correct past misconducted by the federal government related to the representation of law, ending the representation of... So, what does this mean? So the Attorney General, in consultation with the heads of all department agencies in the United States, shall take appropriate action to review... They were already doing this. When he got prosecuted, the DOJ, the Attorney General, all of them were doing policies. They were already doing this. I'm confused on what... this feels like theatrics. This feels like I'm going to say it and put it out there so people can know that I'm against this political, attack of my opponents. But nothing changed. Nothing changed, Benjamin. Okay, sorry. This is just, I think this is like the fifth policy we're reading, right? Like, isn't this one, two, three, four, five? Yeah, this is only the fifth one. I don't think I'm going to make it to the end of the night, guys. I'm going to be honest. So let's fucking go. Policy President of Organizations, the Director of the National Intelligence, the Constitution, the heads of the appropriate department shall take appropriate action to review the activities until over the last reason. Oh, okay. So they're going to conduct research on any sort of like a political attack. So this is very much a petty. They attacked me. I'm going to see if there was any proof that Biden was pursuing any sort of political action against me using the DOJ, using his intelligence agencies. Okay, fine. If there is a world, I'm going to revoke my drink. If there's a world that he did do it, Biden was using the DOJ and all these people, Trump should find it. With now the ability that in front of him, he has all of the three-letter agencies in front of him. He can pinpoint exactly where they did wrong, if they did. So I want to let this one pass, and I'm going to say, even though I disagree on the principle that there was ever this sort of DOJ attack and that he was pardoning BLM protesters, which he was not, this shows that, like, okay, you are in front of the crime scene. If you can't find anything at the crime scene, then it probably didn't happen. Not to say political violence or political pressure doesn't occur, but in this case, in this very specific case, like any sort of lawyer would, if I was a lawyer and someone accused my client for stabbing someone on the night of Saturday, March the 5th, we look into those details, we break down the evidence that we have, and if we can't find it, you can't have a double jeopardy and pursue this person and say, actually, it was March 7th. So I want Trump to come at this at full volume and say, we're going to investigate and look to see if there was any sort of political pursuant of my criminal activity by the Biden administration. If there's not, he should go up on the stage and say, I'm sorry, I fucked up. But he won't. But I'm going to give him the benefit of doubt and say, this is an okay, net neutral. I don't on principle like it, but fine. Fine, Mr. Trump. Okay, cool. Restoring the accountability to the policy influencing positions within the federal workforce. Okay, so this reinstates a prior executive order President Trump signed near the end of the first administration, which reclassified career federal employees into a new category of political appointees. This reclassification removes the employees' civil service protections, which insulated them from political pressure, so that they may now be fired at will. Oh, I remember hearing about this one. So he can now fire employees. Most federal employees have a sort of contract, from my understanding, unless you're like part-time, I think. If you are a federal employee, you were typically on this contract basis. Now I think moving on from here on out, you're going to be this at-will employee, which most, I think, employees are. Like, you can get fired. I don't think there's any laws against most employees unless a contract is explicitly stated that you have a contract. And so in the case of this, I believe he's now just making all federal employees at will, especially important. I don't like this. This is more so, I think it just gives him the power to, okay, time to drink, guys. Time to drink. I don't like it. What a surprise. I don't like the thought of making employees at will solely on the principle of, like, I think employees should have more protections in the workplace, not just federal, but just in general. A business should be able to fire people if they want to, but I think there's also, like, less protections for employees. I feel like there's been many instances where I've seen and known and myself have been in a position where I think a company just fires and it feels like a little bit of discriminatory. And I know there's discrimination laws, or there was discrimination laws at place, but I never liked the thought of people just getting fired. There should be some sort of processes. And again, I know it's a business's right. They can do whatever they want, but at the very least, the federal government, given its huge and political implications, should have contracts and should have more of a hurdles to go through when firing people, just because you're really fucking with people's lives. And, like, I never liked the idea of an at-will employee, or fire at will employee. So I don't like it, so I took my sip, but it's not the worst. Yeah, I don't think it's the worst. Holding former government officials accountable for election interference and improper disclosure of sensitive government. I I don't want to say I hate this until I read it, but I'm very much starting to. I feel like I'm looking at those shooter drinks that I'm gonna have to drink, and I'm like, fuck. President Trump revoked the security clearances of dozens of intelligence officials who signed a 2020 letter discrediting and disparaging the report about Hunter Biden. This order also revoked security clearance for John Bolton, Trump's former national security advisor, who published a memoir in 2020 about his time in. Oh my god. All right, guys, get ready for your shooters. I don't think this is the worst. This is the egregious one, but this is one where I'm like, I fucking hate this guy. We'll read it. We'll read it. But before I even jump into it, I have a feeling Trump lost the 2020 election. He went through multiple court cases where he said he didn't. He lost those court cases. He continuously said he still won. At the very tail end of the 2024 election, he said he did lose. He finally admitted it. But that was after so many people said that there was so much things wrong with it. Elected officials, people who were even running for president, said he won the election. Here's why. But they never took it to court and won. There was never actually any proof. And it was a lot of just hearsay. People like John Bolton, who is a Republican, diehard Republican, had to stop Trump from being super Republican. The guy was super like, I'm going to go to war with people. And John Bolton, of all people, was like, you shouldn't do that. So I know there's a disgust for John Bolton amongst the Trump crowd. I don't like him as someone who's more on the left-leaning side, but you have to give credit where credit's due, where John Bolton was saying, I don't think we should go to war, we should drop this bomb. That's always the rumor. And going off of his memoir, which I haven't read, only had snippets of, he always talked about how Trump was this sort of like warmonger. Now, the Hunter Biden case, there's a letter of I'm sure, elected officials or people working in the federal government. I'm going to read what this says, but I'm assuming there was people who disagreed with the Hunter Biden investigation, because after some point when the Republicans were having the committee researching the Hunter Biden case, they found no collusion that was occurring with Biden and Hunter, Joe and Hunter. Even though Hunter did do those crimes, even though he was a criminal, he obviously used political influence. Joe Biden was never at any point in these conversations using his power. He was sort of just like, my daddy runs this thing. Can you help me out? I disagree with that. I think this sort of like Nepo shit is annoying. And I think having this like political power as like the son of a president is awful. But Joe was never indicted, especially if you had Republicans trying to get him and they couldn't find proof. I weigh on the side that like, oh yeah, Joe just didn't do it. But it sounds like there was a letter where people were saying, hey, this Hunter Biden report isn't worth it. And Trump is saying we should be able to, I guess, beat the shit out of these guys. I don't know. So let's read it. So by authority vested in me, President, the purpose in closing weeks of 2020 presidential campaign, at least 51 former intelligence agents, officials coordinated with the Biden campaign to issue a letter discrediting the report that I remember this. So there was news that Hunter Biden had the laptop case. And within the laptop case, he had like business that he was working with Russia or the Ukrainian government. They say here is the Russian disinformation campaign, but I believe he worked for a Ukrainian company. I think Hunter did that shit. I don't think there's like any contention there. I think Hunter was using his political power to get positions at Ukrainian companies, which I'm against. But the letter that was sent out apparently falsely suggested that the news story shouldn't. The news story is part of a Russian disinformation campaign, which led to many news companies saying, well, we don't want to pick this up because if Russia is trying to pressure us to do it, we're really at the hands of Russia and we're basically giving our enemies points. But if there's an actual news story in place, we should report it, right? So there's nuance there. I get that. But there's this like running belief that like if the Hunter Biden story came, President Trump wouldn't have lost the 2020 election. There's been no polling that like people have said in 2024, if I knew that then. But at the time, exit polls showed that the COVID pandemic, prices for groceries, and I think abortion rights were the top priority for voters. And exit polls are fresh from the oven. People voted and they said, this is why I voted for so-and-so. The Hunter Biden campaign story, if it was relevant, do not think it was going to sway I think the 40,000 votes in each state that would have, pushed it. Like maybe you can theorize that I won Arizona if the Hunter Biden case, but at this point we're just speculating. We could have also said that Trump could have lost if Kamala ran 3 months earlier. Like we just start speculating to a point where it's like, why are we doing this? You lost the election, move the fuck on. And he just couldn't. He can't. The guy is a sore loser. So when I read this, I look at this and that's why I have to pull out my shooter and say like, this sounds like a guy who is pretty butthurt and he's just trying to like shit on his opponent. So I'm opening up the shooter. I don't want to open up the shooter, but I think I'm reading it more and more into a guy who just sucks ass. Before being issued, the letter was sent to the CIA Pre-Publication Classification Review Board. The board, typically assigned to formally evaluate the sensitive nature of documents. Senior CIA officials made aware of the contents of the letter, and multiple signatories held clearances at the time, maintain ongoing contractual relations with the CIA. Federal policymakers must be able to rely on analysis conducted by the intelligence community and confident that this is accurate, crafted with professionalism, and free from politically motivated engineering to affect political outcomes in the United States. Which I feel like you're arguing in favor of what occurred when the Russian disinformation campaign came through, either by John Bolton or was it John Bolton who did the investigation that found that there was in 2016 there was Russian interference. Not enough to pin on Trump because Trump was not involved in it at all, but there was interference to the point of I think you needed to note it. Like, yeah, they were trying to either through ads or through these like bots, they were trying to make the 2016 campaign lose and win in favor of Trump. Even though I don't think Trump would have lost if that didn't exist. I think Trump would have won 2016 because he ran a damn good campaign in 2016, and I will give him that credit. I don't think it works in his favor here by saying this like, oh, they didn't have their vetted institutions. They did. John Bolton, who was part of your team, even agreed with this, and that's why you want to revoke his policy because he doesn't agree with you. But again, I'm speculating. Let's see. The fabrication of the imprimatur of the intelligence agencies to suppress information essential to the American people during a presidential election is an egregious breach of its trust, reminiscent of third world country. Again, they have a committee where they looked at it and said, we think this is Russian disinformation. If they found that as Russian disinformation, I don't know what else you wanted them to do other than just go against their belief and do something in favor for you. Was it the Bolton event? Before I take the shooter, and I really fucking hate myself, I want to see if who did the Russian disinformation campaign invest. I don't think it was Bolton. I think it was Comey. Had to be Comey. I think it was Comey's Comey investigation. He's the 7th director of the FBI. Yeah, I think his report told that there was information of handling. No. I think that's why he fired him. Investigation of the Russian medley. It was Comey. Comey found no belief that there was enough evidence that Trump was associated with the Russian government, so there was nothing to hold him against. And if anything, this made Trump look good. And he got mad at Comey, who then said, well, there was still Russian interference, but just not enough to sway the election and not enough to pin any person. It was just Russia being Russia. And he still couldn't take the dub. God damn it, now I'm drinking my shooter. All right, guys, I can't keep reading this shit. Shooter time. Oh my god, what the hell is that? This is what's called butterscotch. What happened to us? What happened to America? That's all I'm going to say. God, this Dirty Shirley, guys. You really got to get in on this. Everybody who's watching, come to my house. We're all going to drink Dirty Shirleys. I look at the whole political... I look at politics as something of nuance of like, I think Trump has many good points, but how he gets to these observations is very whack. I think his anger against the 2020 is very fair if you think you truly lost, but you went through the courts, you went through the processes, and everything you're saying, if it went the other way, you wouldn't have gave a flying fuck. And that's what I hate about the guy, is his principle. The Dems lost in 2024. There's no 64 court cases. There are no people going on TV saying, we didn't really lose. He held it up until 2024. The only one time I ever seen him say we lost by a hair. That was the only one time I saw it. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but that man and his false elector scheme is just disgusting. It just shows that, like, this guy obviously is just a sore loser. And reading that bill just made me go, like, even though I think inherently it's not really doing much, it's really just kind of reiterating policies that seem to be at place currently. The principle of it is why I took the shooter. It's that thought of, like, we're really going against our beliefs and principles because our side lost. That's what it feels like. All right, next one. Let's get it. Reforming the federal hiring process and restoring merit to government services. The order is aimed at increasing the overall efficiency of selecting and recruiting government employees. Agencies are directed to enact a process that prioritizes candidates committed to government efficiency and the ideals of the American Republic without consideration of race, sex, and religion. Oh, yeah. I think this is the Lyndon B. Johnson one. God damn it. God damn it. All right, shooter time. Oh, wait. Before I do my shooter, I want to see, is this the Civil Rights Act that was done by Lyndon B. Johnson? Reforming the federal hiring I think this is the, if it's the Lyndon B. Johnson one, I'm going to have to do my shooter. Oh, yeah, no, please don't make me do this. I'm going to click on this article because I just want to see. I believe he's... Okay, so this is just the DEI one. Not to say just the DEI one. Okay, let me go back to it. Quick break from politics real quick. Have you guys seen this video of Barney getting shot?
All right, we got Chuck, we got Barney. Barney's about to meet his maker.
Die, you commie fucker!
Don't kill my dad!
It's so good. It's like, what? How do we even get there? Okay. Oh, God, I love life. Oh, wait. So this is the federal hiring. So the below is the DEI practice one. I think I'm going to read it. The policy administration... Okay, so it tracks the highest caliber. So before I jump into it, by all means, I think if we're hiring people based on DEI policies, there should be this sort of like, who is the best person, right? And there's a philosophical debate here of like, if you have a DEI at place where like you're hiring a black person because they're black, obviously that's bad. You shouldn't hire people just based on religion, but you shouldn't also discourage it. You should have people, like if you had a bunch of resumes on your table and some people got the same Harvard degree and you look and see this person got it even with the adversity of being most likely a poor individual, that's a philosophical question to ask and to clarify. But is it something that makes you better? No, it just makes it like, oh, these hurdles you would have jumped as a woman versus being a man, you obviously have a lot more potential. But does that merit, like, I should hire you over this other person? I think there's some philosophical debates here. I think there's some ideas of, is a woman just inherently better because she had to be a woman and deal the same thing, but also worse? Is there even a worse for her? Because many people would argue, oh, you could have more pros if you're a woman. I don't necessarily agree with that mindset. I think there is hurdles that many, like, brown, black, and female people have to go through, especially if you're trans or gay. Those are hurdles where a lot of people in society don't like you. I know like 10 people in my life in the year of 2025 who are still struggling to go home to their families because they're either dating someone who's black, brown, or they're dating a man when they're a man and same-sex shit. And so there is hurdles there. Should we hire on that? I think, again, it's easier said than done. I think on principle, I never want to pick the best person because I think they're just black, but I don't think DI is ever brought to people to that point. I think usually if I have a bunch of resumes, which I've hired people in my old previous positions, I never once thought about their race. I thought more about the resume that was in front of me. And when I met the person, that person showed who they really are. I think there should be protections at place. If I was an asshole and I just did not like someone for being black, they should stop me from doing that. But to find and really delineate where the good and bad come from these sort of DEI policies, it's hard. And I think this is an effort to try to fix the sort of injustices that we've had. I mean, to be fair, you've only had Jim Crow laws over until what, like 40, 50 years ago, we've had Jim Crow laws in place. So there's definitely people in our generation that I know people who had to witness the Jim Crow era that many felt, and there's people who couldn't get a bank loan. So to call it fair, it's not. And to fix it, how? And I think there's a debate to be had here. But reading this, I don't see this as something that like is going to make a difference. I think DEI was very neutral. I don't think people were getting higher DEI left and right as much as people think. But I also don't think it was fixing systems that we had in place. Is the concept of federal hiring should not be based on impersonal factors such as one's commitment to an illegal racial discrimination under the guise of equity, or one's commitment to this concept of gender identity over sex. Is there any such factors in the hiring process? Like, I don't think people did. I obviously was not at the federal level, but I've hired people in my position. I've hired people in my previous institutions. Never once did I look at gender. Those questions that were asked about gender and all of that were asked on the back end by a computer. But as a person picking the person, I never accounted for that. I always looked at their degrees. I've always looked at their basic requirements. So I'm not going to go hard on this one. If this is this seems to be more of attacking DEI, and I think there's another DEI, but I don't think I'm going to sip on this one. I don't like the idea that we're trying to attack DEI, but I also don't think it's going to be the net negative that we find. Now, the Lyndon B. Johnson one, eventually we'll read, and I don't think this is this one. As I'm skimming through it, I don't think it's this one. Well, let's see. So I know there was Lyndon B. Johnson Civil Rights Act. I think that was the one that Trump revoked. I don't think the Civil Rights Act itself, but he did reverse the civil rights policy. Maybe it is this one. He argued targeting DI. Donald Trump kicked off his second presidential term with a dozen of executive orders, many of which focus on a hot-button culture war issue from gender abortion rights. During the past handovers, Democratic Republican administration civil rights division had undergone major policy shifts during George W. Bush. The scale of expected farmers as other projects of the Trump administration had made personal changes in the this might be. This executive order actually might be revoking the civil rights protections. And if that's the case, I look at that and go like, this isn't a DEI anymore. You're just trying to hinder those who are black, brown, and white, and or whatever religion, race, or sex they are, and you're letting the government see. So this order itself, I'm not going to sip to, because I don't necessarily disagree. I don't think we should hire those based on gender, sex, and race and religion. And I don't think this policy is saying to revoke any rights. So I'm not going to sip on that. I want to give credit where credit's due. I think this is very net neutral, even though the next one is a DEI attack. I'm curious if this is the one where he did revoke the Lyndon B. Johnson Civil Rights Acts. Biden administration forced illegal and immoral discrimination programs going by the name diversity, equity, inclusion. Have you ever seen that clip? There's a clip of Trump where someone asks him, "What do you think DEI means?" And he's like, "Do you even know what DEI means?" And they answer like diversity, equity, and inclusion. And he goes, yeah, "But what does it really mean?" I don't have that ready yet, but I do have this clip.
You already know what's going on, dog.
Hey, Mom made pancakes.
Come on, that's such a good video. Oh, God, it's such a good video. Okay. Let's read the DEI Act and see if that is the case. Also, everyone, thank you for joining. Thank you for watching. Thank you for staying in. I'm going to keep going through these. By all means, if you tap out, do not worry. The video that I will have of this entire stream will be up on my channel. And also, we're still drinking. We're drinking non-alcoholic beverages for Twitch purposes. Dirty Shirley's, and then these shooters if there's a policy that I really hate. I got my sake, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? All right, let's get it. Okay, so this is basically revoking the Biden Act pursuant to the executive order of 1398 follow-up orders, nearly federal agencies, director. So there was a DEI mandated policy that was in place, but for federal employees, again, I'm in principle, I agree with the thought of like we should hire the best person. I think if we hire someone just because they're black is awful, but that just doesn't seem like the case in the real world. I don't think it's happening on both spectrums. I don't think people are being discriminated as much as they used to in this era. Could be wrong, but I also don't think people are getting hired left and right because they're black or brown. I've never heard once in my professional workplace from 2018 is when I got my first big boy job. I've never heard someone say like we hired them because they're trans. So I feel like this is very like neutral. Like no one is really being changed here. If anything, you might be on a net negative of hindering the LGBTQ community or the black and brown community. But it's hard to say because this seems to be very like specific to a federal contract, a federal worker, a federal government, and they're not going to discriminate per this policy. We'll see later down the line there might be more. But like there seems to be revoking DEI training, which I don't like. Damn it. God damn it. I do have to sip this then. God damn, that's good. God damn, that's good. I love this country. There should be Shirley temples on every corner. If I'm president, there's a Shirley or Dirty Shirley right there. There should be a freaking beautiful person just handing one of these cups out to obviously legal age if you're 21. But like this is nectar of the gods. This is what I want on my deathbed. God, let's get it. I love it. I love life. I don't like the thought of like revoking these sort of DEI policies and in the case of like the trainings, and I know many people didn't find them helpful, but I think you do have a chance to expand people's knowledges. So that's why I took my sip. I don't think it's as egregious, but yeah, I don't think it's as egregious. I'm looking at each line. I don't like it, but again, I don't think it's like the worst thing he's done. Defending women from gender ideology, extremism, and restoring biological truth. God damn it! Son of a bitch! Okay, this is when we're going to do a shooter. Alright, guys. You ready for your shooters? I already know this one. I'm going to read it to y'all, but... God damn it! Okay, get your shooters out. I'll read it first. Fuck! Okay, the order recognizes two sexes, male and female, and mandates that federal government assert biological distinctions between men and women and refer to individuals by their sex instead of their gender identity. It further prohibits the use of federal funds to promote gender ideology. You know how much funds go to gender ideology? Fucking zero. Zero. There's no fucking funds going to promoting gender ideology. People just fucking so if you are a federal government employee and you find yourself in the category of you're gender fluid, which is recognized by the American Health Association, or you just feel that way, you just feel like I don't fit in these categories, the government just said, fuck you. You don't do that they, them to them. Which is stupid, because I feel like, again, this is very political, this is very biased. You're going against many of the smart people's topics, like any sort of philosophical debate, moral debate, or scientific debate contradicts this. If you are an intersex person, you're born with a hermaphroditic genes where you have both male and female genitalia, what do you do? Where do you place yourself? Those are very nuanced discussions that come in place when it comes to someone who tries to fit into the gender ideology. If you're a federal worker, it shouldn't fucking matter. And nowhere did the Biden administration force everyone to become they thems. But this motherfucker, and I'm going to click on this, and the reason I have my shooter ready, and you all better be ready, because you're going to read this, and you're going to realize how this is probably the one that when I first read, because I've read some of these before. When I read this one, I lost a little hope in this world. I did. I ain't going to lie to you. And this is why. So across the country, ideologues who deny the biological reality of sex have increasingly reused legal and other social coercive means to permit men to self-identify as women and gain access to intimate single-sex spaces and activities designed for women. From women's domestic abuse shelters to women's workplace showers. I think by all means, there is a beautiful discussion, a very nuanced discussion of if a man is born male, but they feel themselves to be on a different gender spectrum, how much of the law should equate or should adapt to that. Like, I feel like sports is a really clear-cut example of like, oh, it'd be weird if LeBron James joined the NWA or the WNBA, because there is obviously some biological differences. But we're talking about sex, and now we're not talking about gender. And for the most part, most people in your day-to-day life are not fucking LeBron James, and they're going to work and they just want to wear a dress or they want to wear a suit because it fits them, and it doesn't really fit the box of their gender. But gender seems to be so more fluid, whereas sex, that is obviously a sex biological tied to biology. Like, there's no difference into that. But to then say that there doesn't exist this sort of in between because there's intersex people, this is where it's like, this is where when I talk to these people, I go like, guy, look, we're obviously just biased here and we're just angry at the idea of different genders. But to eradicate this sort of biological discussion versus gender is stupid. It's dumb. And so reading this, I read this and go like, oh, this sounds like an old person, which Trump is 80, regurgitating some old ideologies from the past. The erasure of sex language and policy has a corrosive impact not just on women, but the validity of the entire American system. And I think there's a fair discussion. I think there's a completely fair discussion of when does sex and gender collide and you can't adhere to someone's gender, like a LeBron James joining the WNBA. I think that's completely fair. I think the thought of like where the sex comes from to the point of how much it hinders one's ability to live. Like if someone came in and said, I was born male, but I think I can have kids, you have to be realistic. But no one's doing that. No one is fucking doing that shit. Maybe you could find one crazy person on Twitter, but for the most part, people just want to live how they want to live, dress how they want to dress. And if they go and be a federal worker, which is completely normal, they shouldn't feel this weird, like, I don't think the government believes who I am. This is stupid. It's just a weird divisive instrument that we use as a government. But whatever. That's not even the worst part and why I have my shooter ready. Y'all ready for this one? So, let me see. Sex shall for okay. Again, because I read this one. Ready for this? So, sex shall refer to individuals' immutable biological classification as either male or female. Sex is not synonym for and does not include the concept of gender identity. Fair. Makes sense. Sex is by itself its own definition of it's its own thing, right? When it comes to genitalia, that's your sex, your inner organs, and your reproductive systems. That is sex. Seems pretty progressive. Funny enough, when you read this and go like, "There's a separation there." Cool. Women and women, women, or girls shall mean adult and juvenile human females. Okay. Weird that we have to make this conversation. Weird that we're wasting pen and paper to make this policy. But fine. I have nothing in principle disagreeing with this per se, right? Okay. Female means a person belonging at conception to the sex that produced the large reproductive cell. Male means a person belonging at conception to the sex that produces the... Here's my shooter. And I'm going to finish this shooter and I'm going to tell you why that's the dumbest shit in the fucking world. Oh my God. Oh, I'm shaking. And then people are like, wait, why are you shaking? That makes sense to me. It's okay. I don't blame you. But as a president of the United States, you should know why I'm drinking to this. Ready for this? Oh my God. Who makes butterscotch alcohol? You, at conception, are a cell. You are not any sex yet. Until your first 2 weeks, you are biologically a female. Every single cell, you can look this up. I'll pull it up right now. Every single fucking cell at conception starts as female. You can't be male at conception. That's why men have nipples. It has no purpose to our biology. Yet, we still have it. Why? Because at conception, you start to form the female traits. I get confused on if it's XY or YY chromosome, but you have the female biology at place, and it eventually you diverge and become male in the later stages of your cell processes. I'm not even a STEM fucking person, and I can tell you, you can't be male at the beginning, at the conception. Here's another shot, guys. Here's another shot, because this is fucking stupid. The thought that we're putting any sort of effort into telling the whole world, guys, only 2 genders exist, is already stupid. But to then get it wrong, I'm drinking. Oh my God. Why? Why did we elect this? You know who wrote this? The guy who wrote the Muslim ban. Back in 2016, 2017, Trump enacted the Muslim ban. Written by that bald-headed motherfucker. God damn it, who wrote the Muslim ban? Muslim ban bill. The Muslim ban bill was written by... What the hell is that guy's name? There was a dumbass bald motherfucker who wrote the Muslim ban, who also wrote this bill. Who wrote? Oh my God, now it's gonna kill me. Oh, it was the travel ban, to be fair. I can't remember. Can't remember his name. He's a bald-headed motherfucker. Oh my God, what's his name? Bald guy, Trump administration. It's Stephen Miller, isn't it? Yes! Fuck this guy! Fuck this guy! He wrote the Muslim ban, and he wrote this fucking bill. He was the one who... So, for those who don't know, many presidents will say, hey guys, I want to do this bill. And then a lot of his team, his administration, will then write the bill. People joked about Biden being this old fart and like he didn't write anything. Presidents don't typically write everything. Typically, in the first 200 days of their presidency, they have a really heavily vetted team and they're like helping him write everything. Trump, in his case, he's talked about how much he's outsourced people to write his stuff, which is fine. That's pretty normal. Nixon had during the moon landing ordeal, he had a guy write multiple speeches for him. Given you're doing so much stuff, right? And I know it's a big thing, but like it's normal. Presidents have people write. But what's his name? I want to say Stephen A. Smith. Stephen Miller wrote this. He's part of the Trump's team. He's more quiet now, but he's very much an adamant, like, I don't like race mixing. He's a weird guy. He's a weird fucking guy. Fuck that guy. So yeah, that's why I took a shot to this stupid fucking bill, because in principle I don't like it. I don't agree that you can just make this like general sweeping statements about the nuances and complexity of like gender versus sex. But at the same time, if you're going to talk about sex and you're going to really pivot on this, like sex is this and sex is that, you got it fucking wrong. And I hate you. I'm going to drink my dirty Shirley. I'm drinking it. It's my life. All right. God damn it. Thank you guys for watching. I'm so sorry. Oh, beautiful. Okay. Establishing implementing the President's Department of Government Efficiency, also known as DOGE. I've read about this project. I don't like it in principle. The executive order renames and reorganizes the U.S. Digital Services, a decade-old office recruits private sector talent to work on projects. I'm not against this project by itself. I think it being existing, you can't just create a department. Like, if you're a president and you use executive orders to create a department, it's going to get shot down in the courts, even by a Supreme Court. Republicans picked by Trump, they're going to shoot it down because principally you just can't do this. You have to go through Congress. In the case of Trump, he just renamed one of the departments, digital services, to the DOGE service. So it's funny enough is it still has the digital service name, but if you look up the domain on Google, it's going to be the U.S. DOGE department, which whatever, fine. Appears to serve a similar function within the USDS, but there will be a new temporary organization that appears to align with the Trump bloc DOGE mission. The DOGE mission is to cut spending. We have a deficit. They want to cut as much spending as possible. In their spending document, they have discussed purchasing or removing funds for stuff like, oh gosh, vet health, like the VA, to I think like Medicaid. Granted, every time Medicaid is brought up in these conversations, they say, well, we don't want to cut that, but everything else on the list we do. DOGE department plan. So if we look up the DOGE, they want to. There was a pretty cool article where I saw where they want to slash government cost. Oh, it's headed by Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk. I can't remember exactly each line by line what they wanted to cut. But I remember reading it and being like, I just don't like this putting it on the itinerary of like, we have Medicaid here, we won't cut it, still scares me, given that we all saw what happened with Trump did the federal funding freeze, and in that freeze we saw the collapse of the Medicaid websites. Even though Medicaid was exempted in his memo, he rescinded the memo, it was a mess. So when the Medicaid websites went down, I looked at it and went, see, like, look how easy it is to destroy so many millions of lives over this one memo mistake, over this one executive policy. I don't like the touching of Medicaid, Medicare, Meals on Wheels, but Meals on Wheels was taken away. All this federal funding for people like in FAFSA who were protected, but there were still fears, and I don't think it was clear. And this is where I look at the DOGE department and say, like, you might be cutting all these costs, and I agree with that. I think there's a lot of allocation of funds in the federal government that is misused, and I think there should be someone looking at the budget, seeing what we can cut. It pisses me off every year I see like VA getting a cut when you look at the CIA getting like this surplus of money every single year. Every president since Obama has increased the budget for the CIA, and it's like, well, look at all these people who are suffering. I always looked at that like, this feels like such a disservice and injustice that we throw millions and trillions to the military budget and just a little dime to the resources that I think really help. When you look at Medicare, Medicaid, SNAP, Social Security, those help people. People usually don't use these services for the rest of their lives. They get out of either a poverty hole and they contribute to the GDP. Whereas the CIA, I feel like, even though I think it's nice to have a central intelligence agency to protect us from sort of terrorisms, I always feel that they have such a bloated cost, and I don't know what they do, and it pisses me off that like people are struggling to get SNAP in Arizona, but when I look at Doge, I look at them and I see just someone who is vowing to cut billions of dollars of stuff that shouldn't be cut. We should be cutting the military budget, not the military personnel, but the CIA, FBI get so much increases over the year. Just in the last 4 presidents, they've had an increase of 25%. Every single president has given them an increase. Whereas the VA, I've seen stagnant. I think here and there you've seen increases, but barely as much as the CIA increase, not even close. And that's what pisses me off. So when I look at the Doge department, I think cool, great. We should look at cutting the cost. I just think they're looking at the wrong end, mainly because they're billionaires. When we look at Elon Musk, when we look at Vivek Ramaswamy, those 2 guys are the richest people on the earth. I don't think they give a shit about the Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, SNAP, Meals on Wheels people. I think they're very much in the group of people that are just going to shit on the American people and cut costs just to say they cut costs, but the end goal was a net negative for the average American. So I don't like the Doge department. I'm going to take my sips to that, but I don't think it's the worst thing ever. You know what I mean? Oh, so I'm drinking to that one. Restoring the names that honor American greatness. So renaming the Gulf of... God damn it! God damn it! I look at a lot of these policies and I don't like them. But I'm always like, oh, you know, I could find like a sort of like why these are good, right? My pop filter fell out. My little pop filter. I don't like this one. I think this is a stupid executive order. I don't think it's the worst. Like, I don't think it's going to do any damage, but I think the principle of it is fucking ridiculous that we're wasting time to talk about, we should name this the Gulf of America. That's the dumbest shit. So let me read it first. And I'm going to do a shooter, unfortunately. God save me. The order directs the Secretary of Interior in the next 30 days to rename the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. So you know what's funny? Obama did this similarly. He renamed the there was an Alaskan front, a mountain, where he named it to a indigenous tribe name. I forgot what it was. I want to say it says, I want to say an Alaska Denali Mountain to Mount I don't think it's this one. I think Obama did something very similarly, or Biden did something very similarly, where they renamed they renamed something. I think it was a mountain. And I always look at that like, look, I don't necessarily agree with, like, I don't give a shit. This, I don't really give a shit. It's not going to change anything. But it is really fucking stupid. And even though, like, the other presidents did this as well, I just think it's such a waste of time. And it's also just, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take my shot. I'm going to take my shot. Fuck you. I'm drunk. Alrighty. I'm really just disgusted when I see this stuff, because I feel like there's nothing wrong with being strong in your American ideals. I think it's okay to understand that, like, hey, look, we are American. We love and be ourselves. We love ourselves, and being patriotic is by all means a great thing to be. You want to be patriotic. You want to love your country. You want it to be better. But I just think it's such a waste of fucking resources. I know it was just a quick pen right for him, so it wasn't really that big of an ordeal for him. But just to waste resources on this, I'm going to take another sip. Everybody at home, we're taking a sip. We're taking a sip of this. By the way, this is a Dirty Shirley, not alcoholic. It's not the worst policy, but it's definitely one where I feel disgusted by. Not because in itself, it's inherently this, like, worst thing. It's just, it's annoying. I feel like we have this American imperialism that we think America is number one and we gotta show the world. But I would rather much just, like, I don't know, focus on stuff of more importance. Like, again, this isn't going to change the world. And honestly, it might even get revoked in the next 4 years if a Dem wins. But I don't know. It just shows, like, the like, fun politics part of this. Politics should be boring. It should be boring in my mind. When we look at politics, I always look at it as something, I don't know, like, it should be boring. We should be making policies of, like, a 2% tax on copper. Not like we're going to name Mount Everest, Mount fucking Awesome Bowls. Like, that, it just doesn't, it doesn't change anything. It doesn't make America better. It doesn't make America, or Americans withstand any sort of trouble they're dealing with. It seems more like when we started calling French fries freedom fries during the disagreement we had with the French government during 9/11 post Desert Storm and all that in action we took to go against the Taliban and eventually ISIS. I don't like the idea that we are so annoying. We're just really annoying when it comes to these policies that do really nothing for the American people. So I don't know. I don't like it. That's why I took the shot, because I think it's so stupid. It shows the hubris of the Republican Party currently. But it's also, truthfully, if I wasn't trying to be as entertaining, I wouldn't have taken a shot, because I just think, like, it's not really going to change anything. I don't really give a shit. But for the views, baby, we taking shots. This is a Dirty Shirley, by the way, for any new viewers. You know what I'm saying. Alrighty. So restoring the freedom of speech and ending federal censorship. In order, also, by the way, the reason I'm doing this stream is because I wanted to educate people and I wanted to make it fun. A lot of people, like myself, I've been hearing about the executive orders that was done by Trump. I wanted to go in there and basically go through the weeds and see what exactly is being done. As a regular average Joe, I'm going to my work, I'm going to my school, and I'm never really paying attention to articles as much as I should be. And I think every American has the duty to read at least one article once a day. And I think in reading this, like, long list of executive orders that he did, I think it's just our duty as an American. So I encourage you all after this stream to read these executive orders yourselves and find where I am wrong, and find, at the very least, if you are understanding the policies, if you're understanding what makes America work, and not because you feel it, but because you actually read the policy, you read what was actually changing, what was being revoked, what was being in place, I have nothing but love and respect for you. So that's why I'm doing this. I'm drinking and looking like a fool and getting crazy on stream because I want you guys to look at this and read and be educated. I know it's such a boring teacher answer, but I really want people to look in policies and politics with interest as much as I do, because I'm typically reading this stuff at work when I'm on my lunch break, and I feel like I'm always so interested, and I don't think much people feel that same. So I understand it completely, but I really hope everyone reads more after this stream. So my little 2 cents. You know what? Let's take a quick breather. Let's watch that video of Barney getting shot.
All right, we got Chuck, we got Barney. Barney's about to meet his maker.
Die, you commie fucker!
Don't kill my daddy!
Ugh. Now that's America. That's all I'm gonna say. Alrighty, so the next policy is restoring the freedom of speech and ending federal censorship. In this order, President Trump asserts the federal government committee to First Amendment's rights of freedom of speech, and bars federal employees from interviewing that right, in order to also direct the Attorney General to investigate and seek remedial actions for federal government activities in the last 4 years that were consistent with the order's promise. I have not heard anything about this one, so let me see. The First Amendment to the United States Constitution Amendment, essential to the success of the Republic, enshrines the right to the American people to speak freely in the public square without government interference over the last 4 years. Under the course of presented to parties, malinformation. To ensure no further Virginia engages in free speech. So I mean, I honestly, this seems like one that I kind of fuck with. I don't understand what would be. Ensure that no taxpayer resource are used to engage and facilitate any conduct that would constitute free speech. Well, so I do need to be devil's advocate. I by all means am someone, I consider myself someone who really appreciates the free speech aspect of the United States. But like, if I go in there and I say I love Hitler, I think those people should be barred from any sort of political position, because that's a threat of sorts. That is someone who is disgusting and is trying to ruin the country. It does go against the freedom of speech principle, but not really. When you look at people who like threaten someone, that is against the law to say, like, I know it's freedom of speech, but I'm going to kill you. That is a law that you are breaking. So I'm not going to drink to this one. It sounds like this is something already in place. Like, you shouldn't feel the need to be losing your position because you've taken some sort of political position. But I mean, if you're not breaking the law, I don't see why you would get fired to begin with. So I honestly, I can't really gripe on that one. American First Policy Directive to the Secretary of State. The American First Policy Directive to the Secretary of State. The purpose of day 4. Oh, let me start with actually the synopsis of it. The order directs the Secretary of State to issue State Department guidance advancing America's first foreign policy through the agency's policies, programs, personnel, and operations. The directive cites the need for championing the interest of American citizens above all else. It does not describe the specific programs for. Okay, so again, this feels like one where it's like, it's theatrics. Like, we're not doing anything actually. We're just saying, like, hey, we should really do America first, but what does that entail? And I think that's a big issue that I have with the Trump campaign and the Trump presidency is when you ask for more details and want to get in the weeds of the policy, you never really get anything much. So I'm curious what this says, but let's go through it. Purpose from day forward, the foreign policy of the United States shall champion core American interests. Great, awesome. That's what most Americans want. You want to be the American first if you're in America. Great. Policy is unpredictable. Secretary of State shall issue guidance bringing the Department of State's general provisions. Nothing in this order shall be construed. The authority of the granted by law and executive department. So, I'm sorry. This doesn't mean shit. This doesn't mean anything. I'm not going to drink to it. But it very much is the case of, like, it just feels like it's just theatrics. Like, it's saying something just to say, look how cool we are as Americans. It doesn't have, like, okay, starting from this point on, if you say anything that goes in opposition of our stance on China, that would go against the policies, right? There's no, like, in the weeds of it. So that's a big gripe I do have with the policy I see as here. It doesn't really detail much, but I don't think it's enough for me to feel like I need to take a shooter. Like, it's just neutral. It's neutral to me. Like did Biden have, god damn it, did Biden have something where he had to, like, because he says restoring freedom of speech, did Biden have something in place in the federal policy itself? It doesn't say, hey, we're revoking the Biden thing, we're just doing it. God damn it, Trump. Okay, I'm drinking. I don't think it's bad, I just think it's theatrics and I think it's stupid. American First Policy Directive to Secretary of State. Is this the same fucking American First Policy? Or am I clicking on the same? Am I crazy? American First Policy. Okay, so I am clicking. I was like, there's no way this is like. Yeah, I was about to say, I'm like, there's no fucking way he's doing the same thing twice for, like, state and federal. Okay, sorry. I was going crazy there. Reevaluating the realigning United States foreign aid. So, executive order immediately places a 90-day pause on foreign aid assistance to the U.S. allies with administration evaluates current aid programming. We're going to pause aid, but I've actually read this one before. If I'm incorrect, we're going to cease all foreign aid except for Ukraine and Israel. This is one where I'm going to drink. I'm going to drink. I'm going to chew my ice because I love ice. It makes no mention of Israel, nor does it make reference of Ukraine. Revaluing the state's foreign aid. I guess because foreign aid, it's not like we're doing when we usually send, like, weapons to Ukraine, it's munitions, and same with Ukraine, it would be mentioned as munitions. I think foreign aid is like if we give money for malaria in Niger, that is foreign aid. I think in the case of Ukraine, that's more of like munitions. I think that's where the distinction is, but I could be wrong. Here, there's no mention of a specific state or country. So that's why I drank, because I didn't feel like... I know we should be placing efforts and allocation of funds to the United States people, but in the end goal, the long term, if you want a sort of... Say you're a Republican and you don't want this, like, mass migration of people to the United States, you know what really curbs that is giving funds to other countries that are suffering, especially those who have fell under the American imperialism. You find it that it's easier just to throw some foreign aid at them, and you will have less of these, like, overabundance of immigrants. I don't fill in that box. I feel like it's okay to have immigrants from Niger, Nigeria, the Botswanas of the world, the Papua New Guineas, because I think usually people who come here are always great people as a moral principle, but as a economic principle, many of the foreign people who come here usually have money, so we're kind of exploiting them. We're getting the best of Niger, we're getting the best of Nigeria. That's why you look at the economic brackets of many people from Nigeria, and they're usually well off, and it's because they have the means to get to this country. So that's first and foremost. Is I think it's, if you are a Republican and you're against immigration, this is kind of going against you, because the best way to curb immigration isn't to shut off your border, but is to fund those countries and make sure that they don't come back, have a reason to come to this country, because their country is doing so well. on principle, I'd rather much have a country, since we're such a strong powerhouse of the world. We are the biggest empire to ever exist. I don't think it's wrong to give money to a foreign country, especially in the effort to make the world better. If eventually you give foreign aid to somewhere like a Niger, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's Niger or Nigeria. I forget which country, but one country, using the foreign aid they got from around the countries, they become now the biggest dominant powerhouse of the African continent, and they have the highest power grid and highest Wi-Fi Ethernet connections of the world, due to foreign aid and them investing into it. So I rather much see the world thrive, and if a foreign aid, if even if it's just a trickle of if it's just a dip of our total, 2.2 trillion budget we have every year, if it's just $1,000, that means a lot to them more than it does us. So it's a net positive in my mind. If that money can go to a person, by all means, I would love that, but it just never does. And I think the net positive of it all is that you're going to have a country that can both be your ally, and it's going to help us in the later run. Is when we want to have trade. It's hard to have trade with a Papua New Guinea or Gibraltar if they don't have the funds to, like, look at Gibraltar right now. They don't have a government. So how can we do trade with them? That's where I think foreign aid comes in. I think this act of foreign aid revoking isn't great. So I'm going to take a sip, but in principle, I don't think this really does much. I'm reading it right now, and it just looks like it's revoking foreign aid, but it doesn't specify which foreign aid. Is it all foreign aid? Is it just looking at it? It's very ambiguous. When I'm reading it, they're just going to reevaluate the... Wait, no. So immediately pause new obligations. Oh, so it's any sort of new obligations. I don't like it, so I'm going to take the sip. But I don't think it's the end of the world. Withdrawing from the... Oh, god damn it. You know what this means, guys? When I do the old god damn it. God damn it. I really don't want to keep doing these shooter shots. Like, I'm feeling it, Mr. Krabs. So, you know what? While we're here, let's just take a quick breather. This is a classic. While I open up my shooter,
Ah, me te va a empujar. No, güey. Sí, güey. No, güey. Vas a caer, Alex. Ahí, ándale. No, güey.
Ya, güey.
No pasa nada. No, güey. Está sucio, está sucio. No, güey. ¡Ya, güey! ¡Pinche pendejo, güey! ¡Ya!
¡Pinche pendejo, güey!
¡Pinche vato, güey! ¡Ya nada, güey! ¡Pinche vato! ¡Ya, güey! ¡Ya, güey! ¡Por favor, idiota!
Ah, te bañaste.
Classic. Okay, so let's get back to the big boy stuff. So this executive order, I've read this before. Trump is withdrawing from from the World Health Organization, WHO. So I'm going to take a little bit of the sip. What the fuck is that? Oh, it's cinnamon. Cinnamon, minimum, all men are friends. When the World Health Organization started to really make waves in the news organizations during COVID, many people felt angry at the World Health Organization. The WHO was making all of these claims, all these assertions that ended up not being either factually correct or partially correct. So there is critique of the WHO. That being said, you want to see which countries are in the WHO and which countries are not. Which countries are in WHO? There's 194 members of the World Health Organization. We are now withdrawn from them. And that is completely stupid. Similar to the... I think even North Korea is on the fucking WHO list. Let's see. I think North Korea is. I swear, if North Korea is, I'm taking another shot. North Macedonia. Okay. Please, for the love of God, please no North Korea. Okay. Whew. I didn't want to take another shot. Oh, god damn it, Democratic people. Son of a bitch. Well. Oh my god, who thought cinnamon was a good idea? Oh my god, I'm drunk. So this is my anger with this policy, why I took a shooter. I don't think it's the end of the world, but I think it is a backward step. just similar to what I said about the Paris Climate Accord, what I said about the Iran deal. When the US pulls out of these organizations, it makes it hard to make a deal with us. If we have it so that you do a deal with us, but the next 4 years we're going to revoke, it makes us look shitty. It makes us look like, why even do a deal with? We will never get another Iran deal. We've already burnt that bridge. Why would they do a deal with us if the next 4 years some guy's just going to revoke it? So I think it makes us look shitty. I think we should have more consistent policies, more consistent agreements. We should follow agreements unless they're super egregious. In the case of the WHO, it's never been a net negative. They have faltered. They have flustered a lot of the policy. They have made us look bad, just as they made other countries look bad. The WHO isn't perfect, but nothing fucking is. It was nice data to have during COVID. It's nice data to have during the avian flu outbreak that we're currently dealing with. But you can tell by the Trump administration, they rather much close their eyes, close their ears, and disregard any sort of policy that could come because of the factual place of that the WHO is putting in. If the WHO says, hey guys, there's this outbreak going on in Papua New Guinea, it would be nice to fucking know. There's no net negative of knowing if there's a country going through hell. Now, if they enact any sort of policy, we can say yes or no. If they say, guys, you should mask up, we can say, fuck you, we don't want to. That's the beauty of the WHO, is to have, like, why would you not want to have data from other countries that everyone's working together? Yeah, maybe one country might fix their numbers just like China and North Korea did. They said, we didn't have any cases of COVID. What are you talking about? It would still be nice to have, and I think it's a net negative to pull out. So that's why I took the shot. That's why I'm so egregiously against the policy. It's just, it really is annoying to see this guy just pull out of all of these things just because he knows it's going to placate his fan base. But when you look at it and you break down the actual principles of the policy, I don't know. It just doesn't make a clear sign that this is going to be some fun years. Like, the 4 years are going to be pretty tough because it seems like the Republican position seems to be contrarian, or at the very least the Trump administration is contrarian to anything that Biden or most prior politicians to him were. Like, it's against fuck the government, fuck the system is a lot of these mindsets. And I think by all means I'm not very happy with the government and with the system, but to throw the baby out with the bathwater is not the step to go. We should be smart, we should allocate funds correctly, we should be vetting processes, and we should not be giving billionaires more billions. But to just say let's just burn down the system, it seems a lot like where Trump's position is, and I can't get behind that. I can't burn down everything we've built up, because the first people who are going to suffer is going to be the black and brown and poor people. I don't fuck with that. I'm sorry. So the WHO might not be this net positive that maybe the Democrats like to pinpoint, or maybe the rest of the world likes to say, but it's definitely not going to be very useful to, like, when we're trying to talk to other countries, we have to really do some digging and pulling to find data. And really, if we want to pinpoint the COVID-19 response was so bad, why do we even need to placate here? You just know the COVID-19 policy made you look shitty because it was a rough pandemic to get through, and nobody did well in it other than New Zealand or North Korea. Nobody really excelled during the COVID-19 era. So I think it's a lot more petty than it is someone being, like, unbiased and trying to think this through. It seems more net negative. So I don't like it. I don't like the revoking of this. I'm not very much in the case of, like, let's be globalists, let's have every country and work together. I love the thought of being able to work with our colleagues, but I think the US should stand by its own when it needs to. But I also think it's stupid to just shun our allies when there's no reason to. If you want to say that the COVID-19 response was terrible, everyone did it terribly. Nobody did it well because it was a fucking pandemic. Nobody did the Spanish flu well. Nobody did the bubonic plague well. We live and learn. This is a stepping back because we were angry of the response. In the end, Trump just doesn't want to take accountability of the poor COVID-19 response. I'm sorry. Clarifying the military roles, protecting territorial integrity of the United States. Oh, I'm scared about this one, guys. How much more do I have? Oh, God, we're going to be here all night. Okay. The order directs the Secretary of Defense to protect U.S. sovereignty, territorial integrity by having the United States Northern Command to seal the southern United States border to prevent mass migration. See, stuff like this where it's like, that's already in place. I think the Border Patrol is already doing in place of what the Border Patrol should be doing is vetting and processing anybody who crosses the border. Even though I wish we lived in a world of open borders, I wish we could just trust our allies. We live in a world where also the cartel has fueled and been fed by the hubris of the consumers of drugs and narcotics and the malplacement of the American government funds. I think funding para-death military squads like Nicaragua and Panama didn't do any services to those countries, and now we have to suffer with what we did to those countries, just like we did when we killed some of the leaders of the Haitian Republic. We are seeing that Haiti is not doing well, and given that interference from the Dutch, French, and American imperialism, we're not doing well for these countries. So why should we not vet these people? Be like, we've kind of fucked up. We fucked up as a country, and I think we do need in place border patrol. But to the effect of, I'm curious to see if he's just giving more powers to them, but we'll see. The armed forces, the United States have played a long and well-established role in securing the border, tranquility the nation. There's a taking part in the nation, armed forces. So I think he's just going to send armed forces to the national emergency currently exists along the southern border, unchecked, unlawful mass migration. I just don't think there's this unchecked, unlawful mass migration that they're trying to paint. When we look at how many people have crossed the border, excluding the COVID times, because we had Title 42, where we completely shut it down. I think most of the time you have a pretty healthy like immigration flow. I don't think there's like this skyrocket, unless again you include the COVID, because COVID shot it down and then we went up. Solemn duty, protect, and defend. I don't know if this is one where I would shoot. I don't think I'm going to shoot on this one. I feel like it's very net neutral. This is stuff we already have in place. Like, we have the ability to seal the border. I'm trying to think. I know Title 42 we were able to. I don't think we can do that without this executive order. So maybe this is one we have to take a shot where it's like, I don't see the. I think if there is like a total destruction of Mexico and we need to seal the border, that's completely fine. Do we have the power to do so? It seems like using this bill, we do not. So I'm going to give him credit where credit's due. If, say, there was like a bubonic plague hitting Mexico, we should have the ability to close our borders. That's just a given for any country. Same for Mexico. They should be able to close their border for destroying their country. But in this case, I think that's already a power we had. I don't think there's also invasions as much as he's trying to paint. I'm going to drink because I don't like the thought of that there's this like painting picture of this mass invasion, which I just don't think there is. But I think we should fund the border. I think we should aid in vetting processes, and the asylum process overruns the admin staff. For many people who have spoken and worked at the border, they felt that they don't have enough to help the people who are seeking asylum, and we should have a more vetting process when it comes. But when you look at us on the grander scale of the world, we have a pretty huge vetting process. Many countries like Paris have like unvetted, or many countries like France, have a more unvetted process than we do. But it doesn't mean that I think we should get to their point or even or stricter, more ours. I think it's theatrics again. I'm sorry if you were a Trumper and I'm just shitting on your guy. I'm not sorry. No. You knew what you joined. Clarifying the military roles of protecting the territory. Oh, that was the one we just read. I'm neutral. I still sit because I'm not in love with the rhetoric, but I'm okay with it. Realigning the United States. Refugee admissions program. Suspending refugee admissions during the time, case by case. Okay. So it looks like we are freezing any USA refugee admission program. I don't like this, so I'm going to take a sip, but I'll explain why. And it might surprise many. I think the refugee program was a vetted legal route that we were taking as Americans. Like, oh, this is a processes. If I'm not mistaken, the refugee admissions applications was done through the CPB app, which was a app that many immigrants would download, submit their claim that they needed help to escape whatever poverty-stricken or dangerous situation they were currently in. But to shut that down, to freeze it, I understand, like, oh, we're having an overabundance of immigrants. We need to, like, process as much as we can now and then maybe get back to them later because of just admin capacity. But to say, like, we like legal immigrants and then shut down the one legal route or the one of very few legal routes, it just doesn't sit right with me. I feel like we're not doing our due diligence. I feel like we're not funding the border correctly. We're ready to throw billions at a wall, but we're not ready to throw millions at admin or admin charges or admin fees or any sort of like administrative background boring policy that like doesn't look good on paper. So to freeze it, it just seems cowardly. I'm sorry. Protecting the meaning and value of American citizenship. The order denies citizenship to certain U.S. born children. Oh, god damn it. All right, guys. Well, another shooter. This might be the last you see of a coherent Nicholas, so I'll see y'all tomorrow. Oh, I can't do it. This one sucks. It's the cinnamon one still. I can't finish it. It's disgusting. I'm seeing colors that you've never seen. That's how drunk I am. I feel like I can do a backflip. I feel like I'm like 99% sure I can do a backflip, but I'm not. I'm not. Because this is a serious show. The reason I took a shooter on this is because we're revoking the U.S.-born naturalization. President Trump asserts these children are not subject to U.S. jurisdiction. So if your parents are not U.S. citizens, how it stands now, because of this, you could come into this country, be completely undocumented, completely illegal, have a kid, and that kid is naturalized. You will then be naturalized, I think, through a processes of either I think you have to apply, or you have natural born, or you get natural born citizenship through by proxy. I don't know the exact process that occurs when it comes to having a U.S. born citizen from a non-U.S. born permanent resident of sorts. But this pisses me off, and the reason I did the shooter, the reason I find this with such anger, is I think we've had the natural born citizenship since like the 1800s. Natural born citizens. Natural born citizen eligibility. I think it's been around since like 1730. Oh my goodness. Come on. That can't be true. Let's see. The first 9 presidents, 12 presidents, Zachary, were all citizen adoption of the Constitution, 1789. See, that's why I take the shot. That's what pisses me off. We have an issue with immigration, is what many of the Republicans and Trump would say. But this natural born citizenship shit has been around since before you were even in your dad's nutsacks, my guy. So who are you to say that this is going to fix anything, if not make it just harder for people who are already here, living their lives, helping America, add to the GDP, and just be all around just good people? You don't want to give them any sort of chance. I feel like this thing was never an issue until you made it an issue. This has been around since the 1700s. And yes, if you're a non-US citizen, you are part of like a smaller group of people that, like, overall, like, people who are US citizens who have a kid, they should have the ability to have their kid be a citizen. That just makes sense. 2 + 2 = 4. But in the case of a non-US citizen, this was some sort of loophole, I think, to many Republicans. But in reality, those people who have been living here should have the ability to have a kid here and have their kid not worry or be sort of met with the, I have to make this effort to become an American, when you were just born here. You were born, you went to the schools, and now you find out 20 years later, just like the DACA kids, the DACA kids who were born in the States, who had to find out that, oh, I'm not an American. Now I have to go through this process. It seems like a wasted effort when we look at the allocation of funds. Again, this is Trump, who has been speaking about the improper use of funds is what puts us in this deficit, what puts us in this bad position, puts us in this higher inflation. In reality, I think we're wasting more funds trying to, dissuade people from just being born in this country, adding to the GDP, and being good, upstanding citizens, making them go through these hurdles. Why? It just doesn't seem like a net positive. I know I'm speaking as like a more left-leaning person, but it just pisses me off that, like, this was not an issue 1748. This was not an issue in 1848. This is not an issue in fucking 1948. Why is it an issue now? Do we really have that much of an abundance of immigration? Some could argue per capita, maybe we do. I don't have those exact figures, but when I look at somewhere like where I live in Arizona, Tucson, the idea that we are having this mass migration where I can't get a job, where I'm suffering, it does not seem to be the apparent reason why we're suffering. When I look at the gap pay of many billionaires versus the average Joes like myself, I don't see a world where I'm thinking it's because of those natural born citizens. So this is why I took a shot to this. This is why this pisses me off, and why I'm going to take a sip of my dirty Shirley, is I think the United States does better with immigration. Why we are rivaling countries that are like having non-issues with the birth rate, why we're having such pretty cheap, fair prices comparatively to the rest of the world. is because we have immigrants who work for cheap, which I don't like, but we have immigrants who fill the gap of where we fall under the birth rate, because there's a fear that we don't have a consistent birth rate, but immigrants help fill those gaps and honestly bring culture and funness to this country that I think I'm very proud of. Myself being a Mexican, I am so proud of my culture, and I get to share it with people who are not Mexican, and I think it's a beautiful thing. But the idea that just inherently they're not US citizens and let's make it harder for them just makes it, I don't know, just whack for no reason. So I don't like this, and I'm going to take another sip of my Dirty Shirley. Guys, I don't think I'm not drunk for any sort of... I've been drinking for every policy. And I feel like I'm slurring my words already. But I'm hella drunk. So, let's give a shout out to AOC. You know what I'm saying? That's disgusting. I love her. So let's do protecting the meaning and value of American citizenship. The order denies citizenship to certain U.S. born children. Oh wait, that's actually the one I just read. Sorry. The executive order proposes a joint state and federal effort to cease and prevent future immigration at the southern border. Trump order agencies to construct a physical barrier to deploy for law enforcement personnel at the southern border. Oh, okay. So I read this one actually. He's been sending federal employees military personnel to the U.S. border. That's been consistent since even Biden. The issue is I think he's sending more, and I just don't like the idea of consistently sending troops to the border. I think troops could be, if they're just standing there in like North Dakota on base, not really doing much, you can use those to help like clean up the streets in the sense of like building houses or rebuilding houses. I always felt that the use of military just kind of sitting there on a base in northern Idaho doesn't really do much. But you can use efforts for military personnel for better purposes. I think there should be a separate, like, the police are the police for North Dakota. They should be North Dakota police. There shouldn't be this interference that the federal government's going to shut down the police. It caused a bit of, like, dysentery of sorts. Like, I don't like the idea that we should have this sort of conflicting, like, is the federal FBI going to be able to override the police department of northern Arizona? I don't like that. But I do feel that the more we have a military presence on the border, we just saw it about 2-3 days ago where there was a shootout between the cartel and some border patrol and military personnel. I think why put us in that position of like we can potentially start a war with Mexico, even though we're not warring with Mexico. I'd rather much not be that position. So I disagree with this in the principle of sending more military to think we can fix a situation that should be fixed either through foreign aid or diplomatic responsibilities. As we speak, Mexico was already aiding America and taking deportees and helping them stay in Mexico rather than sending them just back to Mexico or having them go back to Mexico. I'd rather see that. I think that's more of a cleaner process and less constrictive, less toxic. But what do I know? I'm going to drink to that still. I don't know if I already drank to it, but I'm going to drink to it. Guys, we're drunk. This is drunk Nicholas time. Restoring the death penalty. God damn it. I'm drinking. I don't like the death penalty. I think if we're gonna do a death penalty to like a school shooter who obviously did it, fine. I don't care. Morally, it does feel weird that like I feel like we're playing God. I don't know if it's my religious speaking, but like I don't want to be someone who speaks for the hand of God. I think if we're going to kill someone, who are we to pick and choose who dies? But I think logistically speaking, I never liked the idea of the death penalty, given that it seems like many people who have the death penalty do the crime. So I'll give it that. But there is a regret of sorts. Like I think there was a policy there was a study that came out that 7% of people who were on death row were eventually found out not to be the criminal who committed the act. That kills me. I think as a country, we failed. I think as a country, we have always had, and you can disagree with it, but you can't deny that since the birth of the American Constitution, the birth of the American policies that we've always held dearly to our heart, if you want to stop me on the street, you need to have a warrant. You need to have a probable cause. I think the idea that we can just blatantly fail in our political system, in our sort of police system, the idea that someone can make a mistake is scary. It's normal. It's part of the system. But the idea that like you can have someone go to jail for a crime they didn't do is always scary. And there's no perfect answer to that. But as a principle, as we see in our political system right now, if you go to jail, you committed a murder. They're trying to get you for murder one. You need reasonable doubt. You need 12 jurors to find you that you have without reasonable doubt you committed the crime. We're not going to put someone senselessly in jail for something that we can't have without reasonable doubt. That's just part of our judicial system since 1776. That's always been apparent in our judicial system. So when I see people defending the death penalty and then also at the same time defend the 7% that were killed unjustly, I don't like that. That's just not what our system has been made of. If you disagree with it, fine. You can try to change it. I just think you're going against the founding principles of this country. If you try to get me for a crime, you better find me guilty. I don't have to prove that I'm not guilty. That's the core of our system. So if I am to get off scot-free, and maybe through a technicality, the idea is within our judicial system, I should be walking scot-free just because of the fear that I could possibly go to jail for something I didn't do. And 20 people could walk behind me who did the crime, but I didn't go to jail. And you can disagree with that. But the political system has always been that. It's always been this, like, we would rather placate the innocent and let people who did the crime walk free, with the idea that the innocent are never punished. That's just a core principle. You can look up those who spoke about this from 1776, like John Locke, John Brown. Many of the American founding fathers felt this way. So if you disagree with it, fine. Try to change it. I don't like this. I think it goes against the American principle. Try to change it. I disagree, and I think many Americans fall more to my side. So fuck you, Trump. I'm drinking. Guys, I don't think I'm going to be able to finish this. I'm already freaking wasted. Protecting the American people against evasion. And like the executive order, Trump calls for an immediate removal of those in the United States without legal status. He orders agencies to... Oh, this is his mass deportation raids. I don't like it. I think logistically it's not... It's not... You're not going to have a net economic output that's going to benefit Americans. Many of these mass deportations are going to increase prices. Many of these are going to waste so much funds trying to deport maybe 1,000 or 2,000 people per raid at best, and it's going to cost billions of dollars. So net wise, it's going to be a cost. It's going to be not going to help culturally speaking. Many of these people who are in these mass deportations, such as those who are in construction or in restaurants, will just not show up for work, and you're going to cause a price surge. You're going to cause a cultural split, and you're going to just make people feel like they shouldn't go to work. I don't like it. I've never felt a big fan of these mass deportations. Also, too, the idea that people just cross the border again is very high. I don't like it. Designing cartels. Okay. I read this one too. We are designating cartels as terrorists. God damn it, I gotta drink again. This is one where I feel like I should do a shooter shot. Should we do a shooter shot, guys? Let's do a shooter shot. I assure you I'm not that drunk, but I am very drunk. This executive policy is really pissing me off because I don't like it. This order asks the Secretary of State to issue a recommendation within 14 days on whether to designate a certain cartel. God damn it, guys. We got to do a shooter. All right, everybody at home, we got to do a shooter. All right, guys, we're doing a shooter. Let's click on... Let's click on the Barney getting shot
Chuck,
clip.
we got Barney.
We gotta do it.
Barney's about to meet his maker.
Die, you commie fucker!
Don't kill my daddy!
Okay, so this is why I'm doing the shooter for this one. The idea of designating these cartels as terrorists.
Let's go over here. You need to chill out a little. Over here. Go over here. This is every day with you.
Okay.
All right.
So I think the idea of placing these cartel members as terrorists is just one step closer to what we saw in the Afghanistan and Vietnam wars. We've really rallied up the American people to find that these insurgents, which was used during Desert Storm in Afghanistan, are these enemies of the state. We need to fight these people. And when we do that, we end up using unprecedented laws and efforts to attack them either through bombing, through boots on the ground. This is my fear. And that's why I took the shooter, is I don't want to go to war, especially with a country that is our ally. Mexico is not just going to let us bomb their country. At the very least, there's going to be sanctions. At the very least, they're going to have these ties that are broken. We get a lot of our export and import from Mexico. So the idea that we're gonna like destroy our relationship because Trump finds it that it's easier just to bomb them to then have diplomatic relations, I just don't agree with that. This is, even though we haven't bombed anybody yet, this is one step closer to bombing a country that is our ally. And I think the way to stop cartels is to stop the drug trade, and to stop the drug trade obviously easier said than done, but I'd rather do a diplomatic or policy that either decriminalizes drugs and lessens the power that these cartels have, or these diplomatic responses from the Mexican government. It's not like the Mexican government is from back in 06, they had a president who was very like neglectful. He didn't really do much. But back in 2014, 2015, I think that's when AMLO came in. You had an effort of presidencies that a president that really worked with stopping the cartel and handling it on their home front. That is the best route to take. Fund them, aid the government, rather than just how we used to do during Reagan's time. We used to fund the Nicaraguan paramilitary death squads, which we saw what happened to Nicaragua. We saw what happened with Colombia. We saw what happened with Panama. We really destroyed a lot of these countries, given that we were funding the rebels because we didn't like the government. But now the rebels took over, and same with the cartels. We shouldn't be, not to say we fund cartels, but we've definitely not helped the Mexican government. And to say, okay, next step is to treat them like terrorists. And what do we do with terrorists? Just same thing we did with Boko Haram, same thing we did with ISIS, the Taliban. We have just bombed them. And yes, eventually you have a win per se. You kill the Osama bin Ladens of the world. You kill the El Chapos. You kill the Guzmans of the world, right? But it doesn't lead to the end of the cartel. The best way to, at the very least, make them less effective is to have through diplomatic or through policies that will stop the core root of the problem. Bombing them will just lead to, just like you see in the Hezbollah situation with Israel, they will bomb them to oblivion, but you're gonna make more Hezbollahs in the rest of the in the rest of time. There will be another Hezbollah, if not called Hezbollah, will be called something else. I'd rather have diplomatic working. And yes, Hezbollah did agree to a ceasefire, but again, how much damage has been done and how much was it worth is just, I don't see this labeling as terrorists as a net positive, and I see it as honestly steps to the next world war. I don't know if I'm gonna get through all these policies, guys. I'm sorry. I'm really, we're close. We are so close. Okay. I'm not saying I'm gonna speed run these, but I'm gonna take a sip of my Shirley. And let's get it, guys. Let's get the bread. All right. Protect the United States from foreign terrorists and other national securities. The order commands agencies to pursue more stringent vetting and screening procedures for people immigrating to the United States, seeking a visa or applying for refugee status. We, as a country as a whole, we already have a low acceptance rate for many of the refugees. I'm not to say I think we're the most, but I think we're pretty strict. We're like up there. So if we want to have more stringent policies, I don't think it's the craziest executive order that he's done. I don't necessarily agree with it, but again, I think it's pretty net neutral. I don't think we're letting people in left and right as much many people think. There's never been an open border policy from any republic in the United States. Any administration has never thought of this. So again, net neutral in my mind. Oh, his TikTok act. So this is one that I got really excited to talk about. I'm actually not going to drink to this because I feel like I'm indifferent about this. The TikTok application was banned under the Biden administration. He signed the executive order. I think that's where Biden looked really weak, is when the TikTok ban came to his desk. He signed the act instead of vetoing it, and then 2 weeks later he talked about maybe we should bring it back. That pissed me off. You looked really weak there. Trump saw the opportunity, pounced on it, and many people who love TikTok felt that he did really well in this situation. He protected TikTok even if for 75 days. But let us remember, in his presidency around 2018, 2019, he tried to ban TikTok himself. It didn't work. Now, at the end of the day, we are only caring about end goal. He brought it back, so kudos to him. Was TikTok worthy of being banned? I'm not sure, truthfully. When I saw AOC talk about post the investigations of the TikTok ban, she said that there was no real threat. But I didn't read the full investigation. Does Facebook, does Instagram, all these different apps have similar data collecting and dangers? I think so. Why are we not banning them? I think there's a nuanced discussion. But just to be unbiased as possible, I'm really trying my best. I want to give Trump praise here, even though I think he only did this because, and I'm not even just saying this because I'm saying this, he said this in an interview. He said, I like TikTok because I think it made me win. He said that TikTok people made him look favorable, given that the Biden Palestinian conflict that was going on made him look shitty, and many people on TikTok were shitting on Biden for that. It made Trump look better by proxy. I think he sees it as an advantageous platform that he can be used for his favor. So I don't think the end goal is something I disagree with, but how he got there is something I do disagree with. But at the end of the day, people care about the end goal. He protected TikTok. And again, do I find it dangerous? I don't fully know. Is it taking our data? Probably. Is it something we should look into? I think so, but I don't think we ever will at this point. I think TikTok has become such a political, hard to be unbiased against. So I will not drink from that. The initial recessions of harmful executive orders and actions. The order rescinded 78 executive actions signed by former President Trump, including several public health regulations. All revoked. It also revoked other promoting voter registration and census order that could clear path for reshaping election maps. That doesn't sound good. Advancing racial equity and support for undeserved communities. Ensuring a lawful, accurate enumeration of a portion pursuant to the decennial census. Those are good things. You should have racial equality when it comes to the undeserved communities. You should have a unbiased or more balanced census. Census is great. You have people understanding the electoral map. God damn it, Trump. Okay, one more shot. Rest in peace to Pop Smoke. God damn it, Trump. I'm not gonna go through all 78 executive orders because we're at the 2 hour mark, but Jesus Christ, Trump. The first two I already read were just terrible. Dirty Shirley's really keep me afloat. That's all I'm gonna say. Designations of the Ansar Allah foreign terrorist organization. I don't know much about the Houthi situation, but I do know the Houthis did attack our ship in 2023. If the Ansar Allah is part of that Houthis organization or the head of that, I can't see why not. I think even a Biden would have done that, so I'm going to keep it neutral. I don't like designating all these people as terrorists, just like I felt with the Mexico. But in the case of this, it's like I'm going to drink to it because I think the idea of just labeling everyone as terrorists is pretty detrimental. But I'm neutral because I just don't know much about the Ansar Allah. I don't know much about the Houthis, so sorry. Okay. We're in the home stretch, baby. All right. Removing barriers to American leadership in artificial intelligence. The executive order follows President Trump actions to rescind President Biden's 23 executive order. Oh, I read this one. I think there should be vetting process for AI, but I also think that Biden's EO didn't really do much in place of it. I think it was a good step forward, but I'm going to drink because I don't like this. I think Trump is just being an old man on this one. And I think we should have some sort of vetting when it comes to AI, because AI is new and relatively dangerous to many industries and many people who have felt they've had an AI version of them shown on the line of them being nude, or a job has been lost because of AI. I think we should have these protections. But again, I don't know much about the EO that Biden did. And I think the EO that he did was pretty minimal. Okay, declassification of records concerning the assassination of President Kennedy. Awesome. And Reverend Martin Luther King. We should declassify. I am going to drink, though. I'm going to drink. I've read this one before. I think releasing the records of the assassinations is perfect. I think because of this, we found out John F. Kennedy, there was actually a second shooter that was confirmed by the U.S. government, something that we've been pushing for 40-some years, where there was a second shooter on the grassy knoll, but it was held in declassification. Yet, he didn't release Epstein. So I'm drinking, baby. Free my boy Epstein. I'm just kidding. Don't clip that. You got to release the information about the Epstein case because obviously Trump is in that circle, so he should be punished if he was part of that. But he won't because he's a coward and he's part of that. So that's my only critique with it. But overall, this is probably my favorite from the list. I'm glad he declassified. The more we declassify as a country, I feel like the more as the American public can read and evaluate themselves. Strengthening American leadership in digital financial technology. The executive order calls for regulatory framework to promote American investment, digital like cryptocurrencies. I've read this one before too. He wants to invest more and make less vetted for the cryptocurrency. So I'm gonna drink because I think as a novice person who doesn't understand the cryptocurrencies as a whole, we should prioritize really vetting it because we just don't understand it, and we should understand a little bit more before we just jump into it head first. And I think there should be some regulatory process. So I'm gonna drink to it, but I don't think it's the worst that he's done. Enforcing the Hyde Amendment. Which prohibits the use of federal dollars to cover abortion and related. Oh, fuck you, Trump. God damn it. One more shooter. Yay. Oh my god, that's awful. Oh my god. Alyssa, I love you. Sorry guys, I was speaking to my shoddy before I pass out from the drinks. Fuck you. Abortion should be a right that every woman has the access to. If we want a discussion of when the period of abortion should occur, I think it should be left to the medicinal personalities like doctors and or any sort of medical personnel that is working with intimately with the woman. I think the idea that we're not protecting and expanding healthcare rights is stupid. So fuck you, and you revoked Roe v. Wade, you bitch. Emerging measures to provide water resources in California. Oh, okay. The order directs. Oh, I'm not gonna drink to this. I've read this before. Donald Trump has wanted to ensure that there's been water resources to California, and the efforts of helping either establish preventative measures or reactive measures to the wildfires or just certain like destructions that could occur without the water access that California has. They're currently or constantly in droughts. The idea is though Trump keeps saying this is I'm not going to drink to it because it doesn't affect the policy itself is a step forward. We should ensure that there's resources in Southern California, but there already are. I know people who work in the water industry who talk about how nothing has changed with this policy. It's really theatrics, but Donald Trump made it worse by saying that like he had people go there and turn on a valve. He said he sent the National Guard to turn on a valve of water that was hindering people of California. That was untrue. I know people personally that have talked about this and said that he's just lying. The National Guard had to even make a statement. I think this, god damn it, I think I'm gonna have to do this. I'm gonna do a sip. I don't think this is the worst because it's net neutral. Like, it doesn't really change anything. But again, it's theatrics. A lot of these policies seem very theatrical. Like, look what I'm doing to placate the base, but they're not actually doing anything. God damn it, Trump. We got 4 more left. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more left. Council to assess the Federal Emergency Management Agency. This is his revoke. So they're going to establish a council to review how the FEMA agency works. The order says there are serious concerns of political biases. Yeah, many rural red Republican states are being affected by FEMA more so. They are taking a lot of the brunt of the issues that are occurring within those countries and those counties, I mean. In the case of North Carolina and of northern Florida, you saw a lot of the natural disasters that occurred with this hurricane that was destroying North Carolina mainly. I think the Carolinas. And FEMA helped a lot. Now, does FEMA have its critiques? By all means, yes. FEMA has failed in the case of New Orleans. You saw with Hurricane Katrina. But to say, let's just get rid of FEMA and let's evaluate if they're doing anything, you should be able to. You should, Trump, as a politician, as a president, you should be able to research and look in to see if they're doing their job properly. But he has discussed getting rid of FEMA as a whole. And so I think just doing this is a disservice to those red states that got you elected. But if you want to have a panel and look to see what they're doing, I'm never going to disagree with that. I'm never going to hold back and say this is a bad case. You should be able to look at the policies of America as a new president or a relatively new president, returning president, and associate if these are good funds or not. Fine. I disagree in principle, but again, the policy itself is something where I just feel like he's going to hinder himself. Let him. I really have my heart going out to anybody who's going to suffer from the next natural disaster. So we'll see. The Iron Dome for America. God damn it. I read a lot of these actually before. I didn't realize how much of these I had some good knowledge of. The Iron Dome for America. Everybody get your shooters out. We all got our shooters out, right? Alrighty. I don't like being bold. Alright, the order seeks to deploy the next generation of missile defense shield. I think having an Iron Dome in America is kind of stupid. Right now, when we have an Iron Dome, if we're talking about, unless there's something I don't know of. The Iron Dome usually pertains to missile defenses that have from like a local RPG or a smaller turret system. But if you have something like an ICBM, I think they call them, the missiles that something like a North Korea would shoot would not be able to be stopped in time by a typical Iron Dome. Now, if we want to have an Iron Dome for the country, it just seems more like a waste of money, but fine. It honestly doesn't seem bad to have more protections, just like Reagan did with Star Wars. Reagan had the Star Wars initiative, which seemed to be a net neutral of how much it really saved America. But it's nice defense to have. We should always have defenses just in case of a war, of an enemy. But the current, I think it's called ICBMs. Those current missiles that would be launched by Russia or North Korea will not be stopped by the Iron Dome. So that's my critique with this. I'm not going to sip because I think, in principle, I'm okay with having more protections to the United States front. That being said, it's funny that the Republicans who have talked about budget deficit spending are going to spend billions of dollars on this project, probably trillions, to cover an Iron Dome of America. It's not like Israel where you can cover a small portion of land. This is the United States as a whole. You would have to cover from the East Coast to the West Coast, and it's not cheap. And I don't find this. I'm gonna sip my Shirley, but I don't fully agree with it. Okay. Restoring America's fighting force. The United States Armed Forces should operate free from any preference based on race or sex. Abolishes DEI offices, including. I'm not gonna sip to this. I'm gonna sip to this. God damn it. There was this poor woman who was murdered in the military. I think the army, and she was a Latina. She was killed, and the perpetrators are never found. They were protected by, I believe, the American Army forces. Forgot her name, which is such a disservice. But she was killed, and I think many women have discussed being in any military branch, that being a woman amongst men leads to a lot of danger. So even though I don't know how much the DEI offices were effective, the idea that we want to we want to retract any sort of protections for these women or these black and brown people, it seems kind of foolish. It seems ludicrous. It seems, again, this is a net neutral, and now we're going net negative when we revoke it. So I don't know how much DEI is saving these women, but it seems like a bad step in the wrong direction. And I forgot the woman who was murdered. She was funny enough, her family were big supporters of Trump, so I'm curious how they feel about these DEI policies. But truthfully, too, I don't know how much of these DEI policies would have even prevented her assassination, basically. So I'm net neutral on it. I don't like it, but we then transition to the next one, where any gender dysphoria military personnel should not, or they're unfit to serve in the military. The prioritizing military excellence. All right, I'm doing my shooter. Everybody at home, do your shooters. Oh my god, that was awful. That was the worst one. I took my shooter on this because anybody who wants to serve in the military and can survive basics should be able to fight for this country if they are so deemed fit. Just because president doesn't understand the difference between gender, just as we saw in his earlier executive order, he couldn't even understand the idea of at conception you are female or male. So the idea that this man is going to say anybody who is gender dysphoria is going to hinder them from serving in the military, especially in the time of military applications have plummeted, I think it's stupid. I think it's being abrasive for no reason. It's a net negative. I don't like this. That's why I took my shooter. God, I fucking hate this administration. God. It's not going to change anything. It's actually going to hinder the military, and this is something that he tries to say, like, oh, I love the military. Most military personnel will tell you that when they serve with someone who is of black race, a different race, of a different gender, they are someone that they will die for. And if someone is fit, if they are fit, just like as we see as like a Chelsea Manning, they did their job for their country. They were fit even though they had gender dysphoria. It's something that I don't think should ever be in place of why they shouldn't serve. I disagree with it vehemently, and yeah, it's disgusting. Reinstating service members discharged under the military's COVID vaccination mandate. I'm gonna take a sip, but this is a small sip. If you refuse to take the COVID-19 vaccination, I think there's very much good reason to, but if I'm not misunderstanding the policy, I think you could have already gotten an exemption from your doctor, given that the COVID-19 vaccination was new. But many military personnel will tell you they have to take polio, they have to take the measles vaccination. So this seems really theatrical. Like there was already in place COVID-19 mandates or vaccine exemptions. So I think being able to rejoin the military is not a net negative. I think this is actually one I might give him a little bit more credit for. But it's also something where it's like military personnel are very much aware of how much vaccines they have to take, given that they'll go to somewhere like a Afghanistan or a Niger, and they are expected to take some sort of vaccination because on paper it usually does well. Even though I even personally know people who have taken the vaccine and have been hindered because of it, I think on the overall net positive of the world, vaccines usually save more soldiers than it hurts. But I think it's okay to say I'm going to have an exemption, and I think I would fare well without the vaccine. But there should be some vetting process with that. So if you're going to reinstate some people, by all means, do it. I think it helps the military numbers. And as a Republican, he's going to look great. So I don't blame him for this. I don't necessarily fully agree, but it is what it is. This is one where I feel okay with. And we have reached the end of the list. Let's fucking go. Thank you guys so much for sitting through all of this. I am so sorry I got drunk so quick, and I hope that was coherent enough. But thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm going to end it here because my brain is going crazy. Every time I shake my head going left or right, I see 5 of myself. So I'm just going to let this end here. But thank you, thank you, thank you so much for watching. I really respect you all for sitting through this almost 3 hours of me just bullshitting. So, yeah, thank you, thank you. I will try to stream more. I like doing the Twitch stuff and just reading through boring-ass policy while drinking because I think it's funny, but it's also educational. But overall, I really thank you guys again, and I'm going to end it here. But, yeah, you know what? While I have you all here still, let's just watch Barney get shot.
Chuck, we got Barney. Barney's about to meet his maker.
Die, you commie fucker!
Don't kill my daddy!
Oh, classic Yahweh. Yahweh.
Ya. Pinche vato millonario, güey. Pinche vato. Ya, güey. Ya, güey, por favor, idiota.
Ah, te bañaste.
Ya me dejo,
Well, shouts to y'all. Thank you so much. We're gonna stop it here. The VOD will be up on my channel real soon. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And peace. Thank you again.